We are excited to welcome you all to the annual CXO Tech Summit and Awards 2020, brought to you by CXO TV from Tech Plus Media. The theme for the summit is Adapt, Innovation and Win. In today's business environment, technology, customer expectations, workforce issues and economic factors are witnessing tectonic shift. To tide this existential challenge and to thrive in such an environment, successful businesses and business leaders are deploying adaptive behavior, and technology across enterprise is continuously evolving. From business transformation and technology project management to artificial intelligence and machine learning, the CXO Tech Summit and Awards will explore a broad range of themes critical to the entire season. CXO Tech Summit 2020 will bring 2 days packed with 42 sessions. The event will have 3 parallel sessions running simultaneously in 3 different auditoriums. And this will include panel discussions, technology track, elevated pitch, networking sessions, presentations, and fireside chats, all in a virtual setting. So please refer to your agenda and select your session. On 27th and 28th of October, industrial leaders and their peers will have the opportunity to hear from high-profile CIO speakers. In this virtual summit, top technological executives will share their advice on the roles CXO can play in driving innovation, transforming businesses, and fashioning the future of work. So watch as the industrial leaders provide strategic guidance to transform your organization from digitally distraught to digitally determined.
Hi, good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to some of us. It's my honor and privilege to welcome you all on the first day of prestigious CXO Tech Summit and Awards 2020. CXO Tech Summit is indeed an exemplary platform to connect CXO across the industry through a common thread of technology innovations and best practices. While COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in significant loss of life and business as well as severe economic disruption, there are still plenty of the reasons to have hope during these times. One of the biggest positive elements is how technology innovations are enabling businesses to address the challenges and meet changing customer expectations. COVID-19 has transformed people's life at unprecedented scale, impacted every industry, and co-opted enterprises ambitious for growth and innovation. But the pandemic has also slowed down innovation. It's amplifying to a historic level. Robots are disinfecting places, hospital foods, and delivering packages. Smart devices are monitoring patients' health and collecting valuable health data. Human and AI collaboration is leaving the proof of the concept stage and becoming a critical tool for scientists studying the virus. While much of the world is still grappling with the pandemic, innovation is accelerating. According to the latest study, it takes an average 66 days for a behavior to become a habit. And that's true. And that's a good news for the business leaders who have spent close to 6 months running their company in a way they never could ever imagine. The COVID-19 pandemic is launching pad for organizations to become virtual, digital-centric, and agile to do it all the light fastening speed. Business leaders are saying that they have accomplished 10 days what they used to do 10 months. That kind of speed is what unleashing the way of innovation unlike anything we have ever seen. But simply going faster isn't the answer. Rather, winning companies are investing in technology, data, processes, and people to enable speed through better decision and faster course correction based on what they learn. According to the recent McKinsey survey of more than 200 organizations across industry, over 90% of the executives expect the fallout from COVID-19 to fundamentally change the way they do business over the next 5 years. With 85% of the respondents highlighted that the crisis will have a lasting impact on their customer need over the next 5 years. In addition, few feel equipped to face the challenge, with 20% having the expertise, resources, and commitment to pursue new growth successfully. The survey blusters the 80:20 rule, where 20% of the business will drive 80% of the revenue. This stands true in the current pandemic situation. Another key insight that is highlighted across the industry executive is the new scenario will also bring the new growth opportunity. Nearly 3 out of the 4 executives agree that the change brought about by COVID-19 will have a big opportunity for the growth, with variation across industry. Technology executives lead the race in terms of the opportunity they foresee in the post-COVID world, with 85% of the technology executive expecting new opportunity in the post-COVID world. Even the other segment, including the consumer packaged good, pharma, financial services, retail, health, communication services, that see a new opportunity will be best equipped to leverage these opportunities with the use of new technology. Hence, technology has come out to be the most crucial aspect in this current scenario. The crisis has undoubtedly accelerated digital transformation across the world and opened our eyes to the possibilities offered by the technology solutions to enhance and support our life, sustain and growth our business. I would like to share a few trends in technology transformation we expect to see in the coming month ahead. In short term, people are changing and enterprises should update their personalized strategy to keep up. However, in long term, the purpose of the digital experience will be transformed. Demand is soaring up for truly shared digital experience and digital communities. The need for digital platform and experience will continue to accelerate in COVID world. The enterprise has started building personalized, interactive and shared virtual communities today can carry that success far into the future. Many companies are already investing in machine learning to build recommendation system. Take an example of online grocer, which is Big Basket. With its small basket feature, a ML and analytical based system, customers are saving shopping time and exploring new products and customized recommendation based on their previous purchase and shopping behavior. Similarly, RBL Bank used ML tool to map customer journey, identifying the point where the drop-off occurred or the cash happened during a touch point. Reach out to the customer to solve these points and give a proactive message on the next action. Further, AI is emerging as one of the most crucial technology package, despite the fact that the Indian business are realizing only a fraction of their AI potential. A 2019 Global Accenture study on AI found that one of the top roadblocks to scaling the technology is the lack of employee adoption. But the pandemic could push us to past this. AI offers unlimited potential for growth and innovation. In India, companies will be limited only by what they can imagine, but will be expected to grow and change more rapidly than ever. By consciously embedding human and machine collaboration at the core, pioneers are already positioning AI to be the driver of that change. In addition, advances in robotics, sensors, speech recognition, and computer visions are combining with shrinking hardware costs to make robots accessible for companies that haven't traditionally used them. IDC predicted that the global robotics market will increase or in fact will reach $210 billion by 2022. only half of that will be in manufacturing. Now, this same benefit and advantages that are largely limited to the manufacturing and related industries are coming to many other companies. Some of the leading companies are already embracing this shift to find new ways to serve customers and improve their operations. The perfect example is the courier firm DTDC. For example, uses 25 arms robots to pick 3,500 orders per hour, which is about one order per second. Expert contended that the companies that aren't heavily investing in analytics in 2020 probably won't be in business in 2021. Using big data and analytics has always been a steady growth trajectory, and then COVID-19 exploded and made the need for data ever greater. The need for data to make all business decisions has grown. But this year we saw data analytics being used in the real time to make critical business and life-saving decisions. And I am certain it won't stop there. Moreover, the enterprises across all the industries are already making big bet on connected future. Globally, the IoT market is expected to grow 75.44 billion connected devices by 2025, with a projected market value of 1.1 trillion USD by 2026. Further, the pandemic has given us a large opportunity to rethink the traditional approach and purposefully retrofit existing structure to meet the need of the new reality. A good example of this is the education sector, which turned out on its head with a sudden closure of schools and learning institute, using EdTech for remote learning, which makes education available to the student with an internet connection across the world, ultimately supporting them in continuing the education regardless of their location. While the physical events across the world have been cancelled, event organizations and the organizers are embracing the opportunity and started structuring digital virtual events. And I believe this will increasingly become the norm. The cost-saving benefit alone will be the key driver in the organization, encouraging the adoption of this transformation. The crisis has also sparked a range of out-of-the-box thinking and innovation across industries. Existing technologies such as 3D printing is being leveraged in a unique way to support the healthcare industry during the pandemic by printing the much-needed component for medical equipment. We have also seen the unprecedented rise of e-commerce, which is set to skyrocket with the online transaction already pushing the boundaries of existing infrastructure. The banking industry is finding new ways of assisting clients via digital payment platform, and the use of the cash will likely to decrease in a lot. While the economic turndown are possible to predict and sure as sunrise, I believe it's a waste of time, in fact, to try predicting the next economic cycle. The focus must be on building the resilience of our business. The term resilience refers to the ability to take the knock, but its broader business meaning is having capacity to withstand a knock, quick to learn and agile enough to recover quickly. When the news of COVID-19 spread, organizations began considering how it would affect supply chain access, product launches, employee well-being and business continuity. But many fail to consider the importance of resilient business model. In order to build a strong business resilience and continuity plan, I would suggest 3 initial steps to consider right now. Point number 1, determine how confident you are about your existing programs. Don't wait for regulators or auditors to analyze the health of your recovery. Point number 2, identify your heartbeat business process. Develop end-to-end resilience strategy for things that make your company run. Point number 3, conduct an exercise or stimulation and challenge yourself in the process. Creating some tension can help you see if your company is preparing for this significant business disruption. While the above topic offer the glimpses of the discussion we would have today and tomorrow, the Power Pack sessions have been designed to deliver conversation with robust business strategy and steps to counter the current threat. The entire agenda of the event covers the thought-provoking topics under the 3 parallel tracks, including technology innovation, business strategy, cultural transformation, digital transformation, hybrid cloud, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, and many more. I'm sure that CXO Tech Summit will prove itself to be the most result-oriented event of the year. Thank you.
Good day to each and every one of you. I'm happy to be joining here today to the CXO Tech Summit and delighted that you have organized a wonderful summit today and invited me to speak on business resilience during these COVID and difficult times. I think the entire COVID-19 situation has caused a paradigm shift in every business activity. And technology becomes the touchstone and cornerstone of all the changes that are going to be. The time has come when we must understand and imbibe technology into different sorts of activity. And it's across the board. It's not about technology being at variance with what business and industry is there, but actually to see how under these circumstances we are able to adapt to the new situation and leapfrog into a position wherein we are able to cope up and better our situation as early as possible in order to bring the economy back to track. So we have 2 different stories. The first story, which the Prime Minister Narendra Modi recounted, and he talked about Jaan hai to jahan hai, which meant that if you have life, then you can think of livelihood. So the focus was on a total lockdown situation wherein we were required to remain in our residences, close transportation, close our offices, close our business, close our industry, and remain in the home, except for certain essential commodities which were required to be given, and to set up hospitals and situations emergency to get more beds, to get more ventilators, and to see that the society gets to adopt masks, which again had to be produced in the shortest period of time in order to meet the market. Last but not the least, a technology upliftment in order to see that the production of vaccine would be taken up in right earnest besides the other medicines in order to make it as early as possible. This was a different story simply because vaccines normally take 2 or 3 years even when they are speeded up to produce. But this time, looking at the pace of the pandemic, it was required to be, and all different regulatory bodies expedited the process of moving from the first to the second to the third phase of emergency trials. What became extremely important to each and every individual? His internet connectivity, his mobile, his entire contact possibility virtually like we are doing here today. So we learned, and everybody learned, what was the Zoom, what was the Google Meet, what was the Microsoft Teams, and different sorts of connectivity. All these made a world of a change that we sitting in our homes or in isolated locations were able to communicate with the rest of the world, and things could go on in a different sort of way. The second part of it was what was happening in individual businesses and industries. Let's take the education world. People had thought of and were conducting certain amount of online courses. which were known all over the world. Coursera and similar other online courses were existing. However, very, very few people ever utilized that in the course of education. Today, whether it is from the first standard of school or to PhD students and research scholars, all of them are using the virtual platform, which meant a paradigm change in terms of education. Both the learners, both the teachers, all of them had to get into and incorporate the new educational platforms in order to make this change happen. And today what has happened? We find even in India, education is done on the virtual platforms. Examinations are today being conducted on the virtual platforms, and continuous education is possible in order to meet the challenges of the time. These learning platforms have various other names. Coursera is followed by Skillshare, by Masterclass, FutureLearn, Moodle, and all sorts of things. Academics and people have to have ERP solutions for admission, website creation, teaching, and other extracurricular activities. I mentioned in terms of education, but it became applicable across the board in all businesses and industry. And every business and industry had to incorporate the use of technology. Banking and other systems also were already online, but today it took it to the other extreme, where hardly any transactions could be done on the physical nature. Everything and all communications and transfers were taking place on the online platform. E-commerce had a big boom. Shops were not open. All the other places of shopping and other interests, including essential items, were closed down, but they were all delivered on the e-platform. And this became a new idea that online shopping really reached its zenith. So all this became extremely important. What was it that the result was? That we were able to bring back a large amount of the economy even during the lockdown period. And this is actually an amazing story, that the entire tech platform enabled us to come back into a situation where the economy has come back. Slowly, as unlocking is taking place, various industries, manufacturing and others have also come back to life. Construction is coming back, migrant workers are coming back to their sites, but all this has still continued to say that the online platform, the internet platform, all the digital platforms are definitely going to remain as a permanent revolution which has taken place in the technology field. One of the other things which became extremely important was data. Data centers were required to be expanded in order to meet these new contingencies. We at Toyota took up this challenge in a very big way, putting up Asia's largest data center, a tier 4 data center, and also the second largest in the entire world. This will enable the entire Indian network to have the data localized, which is the Prime Minister's desire, and also to meet the issues of data security, so that we do not have to offshore our data to other countries. In fact, can we actually see to it that data which is otherwise stored overseas can come to India even if the transactions have taken place abroad? This is a possibility which is going to happen, and we are really proud to say that the technology feat in India is tremendous, and I believe that these changes are going to take place rapidly, wherein data localization will become a state which will be required by law, which will be required by necessity, certainly to the security of India. The last and final thing that I'd like to share with you is the fact that we are now going to accept the new change. The new change which has taken place has to be technology driven. And it is up to us in the technology field to actually empower the speed of change to take place. Provide easy ultimate solutions for the consumer, for the economy, for the government, for polity, for businesses, for transactions, and also to meet the social needs of the deprived. Today, for example, can we get this education platform not only for the top-rated schools and colleges in the cities or metropolitan cities, but can we now outreach these people to the poorest of poor section in the remotest villages? It's easy and possible. So all these things which will now drive the situation is creating technology platforms to achieve the social purposes. The Prime Minister has already done opening bank accounts wherein direct money transfers do take place, where government is interested to reach the needs of the socially deprived, the farming community, the other backward sections of the economy. All these things can now happen at the touch of a button, a click of a switch. And this is the change which we are going to see in the next decade. So technology has to learn how can it be useful, how can it be user-friendly, how can it be easy for us to imbibe these changes which are taking place in order to create a real world which is virtual but becomes useful for the people who are operating it. So today, once we meet the challenges, the leadership which Indians have taken as CEOs of so many of the American giants, and also IT professionals all over the world are Indians, can we in the technology platform also do the same in India in order to make the paradigm happen. Meet the challenges of the COVID situation, meet the challenges for the new world and the problems of tomorrow to bring solutions which are going to be socially beneficial to one and all. I'm grateful that you have called me here to share my mind and thought along with you. Thank you very much. I wish the conference great success.
For the last 30 years in my career, the way I was trained was with the simple fact that you need to get better and better, or in other words, precise in what you do. But in the last 7 months, the world has shown us that precision by itself is not good enough. Adaptability is actually sometimes takes better over precision. And I'm very happy to talk to you for the next 15-20 minutes about how this precision is leading to the whole culture of building resilience, whether it is in our leadership or whether it is in our business. So in times like this, the forums like this play a very, very important role, because nobody has all the perfect answers. We just share our perspectives, learn from all of you, and that's how we will continue to evolve. I still remember the day the first lockdown was announced. The next day, I was addressing a 100 people team who work along with me, and questions on everybody on top of the mind was, what are we going to do from tomorrow? The one answer that I gave them will surprise all of you, and my answer was, I do not know, because no training, no education, no experience ever trained us for the situation that we were into, because the one thing that was really facing on in front of us was uncertainty. So hence, I think this learning and sharing is very important. Let's start with simply looking at what's happened over the last 7 months. We were all trained for making BCP plans, business continuity plans, but those plans were made just in case 20%, 30% of a business changes or some unforeseen situation happens. A power cut happens for 8 hours, 10 hours, and then we resume back. But now we are talking about a BCP plan which already has been in the working, or we're working along with it for the last 7 months, and we don't know when we are going to go back to normal, or maybe we'll never go back to normal. One of the best examples of BCP planning that I have seen is what has come from the Indian IT community. We all speak about our heroes in our healthcare workers, but what our IT community has done has not been anything less than that. So I think what you've already done is the first level of adaptability, where overnight people worked together and made sure that our lights were really on. I think the next big thing that we have to really look at is that how is the consumer demand change? Now, this is certainly not been even. On one side, we've looked at certain industries, unfortunately, like travel and tourism is likely to see a couple of $1 billion of loss in terms of their revenue. On the other hand side, e-commerce companies and even platforms like Netflix are seeing 60+% growth. From a Cisco parlance, the WebEx platform that I'm speaking to you about has seen a 4.5x growth from February till now. Now, none of us were prepared for anything like this, but then it always needs a willpower to do things with the technology backing to make sure that we cater to this various demand which is really coming out. I think the next big thing which has got impacted was the global supply chain, and I think we all realize that world is so well connected, and one part of the world gets impacted, it's very natural that our supply in many other parts of the world get impacted. I think it took the world 3-4 months to come out with a better strategy around it, and I think we are now almost getting to 70-80% business as normal when it comes to the global supply chain. I think the big thing that has really hit us is the liquidity crunch and the lending challenges. Let's start with people like you and me. I think we all will realize that we are all spending our money and time and energy on essentials, and luxury is taking a backseat. This is really how the landscape is, and I'm sure each one of the news channels that you've been watching over the last 7 months speaks about these things to the death. So I will leave this here and I will move to how do we learn from here and how do we do these things differently. I think 3 big things. It's very sad that we have now reached a situation where one human being doesn't trust another human being. So there is a trust deficit. In other words, we are shifting to new behaviors, because earlier we used to hug each other, we used to be close to each other, but COVID has taught us is that we need to do even these celebrations from a distance. And when we apply the technology lens, it basically means that can we do everything that we are doing without getting in physical contact with any human being? And that's where technology is really coming into a big way. On a conscious note, remind everybody that all this needs investment, which has been unbudgeted for. And one good example I'll take from another customer of ours, which is Bangalore Airport, the city where I stay in. I mean, they would have never imagined that from the check-in process and to the gates that they have to when we board, everything had to be turned contactless the moment flights opened up. So obviously everybody had to use technology, but more importantly, the message that I have for all of you, we need to divest, because we need to stop spending somewhere and then only we'll get the money to spend on technology and most importantly, retraining of our entire human capital, because even they have to get used to this new normal, and that's why divest and reinvest is the way to go. The next big thing that we are seeing is everybody is talking about digital. I think my best example of this is IPL itself, which is so well watched by crores of Indians. I think we would have never imagined that a big sport like IPL will go digital, and phenomenal job done by all the organizers in making sure that they started a couple of minutes late. But I think now when I watch TV every single day, I don't feel the difference. And where again technology has got into picture, because the fans are being beamed into the stadium. Now, we could have never imagined that will be a situation where the fans are sitting at home and some of them who win some lucky prizes get beamed to the stadium and their faces are shown there. And if you all have watched, the look and feel of the stadium has completely changed. The one big thing this has taught us is that nobody can do this alone. And I think we have to reorient our mindset in a way that we have to look at some of our competitors also as partners. One good example of this is what Uber has done along with Big Basket, where they could have never thought earlier that there will be a synergy between both of them. But when the demand on all the online platforms gone so much, they looked at taxis which were not getting frequently used because people were still not traveling outside. How they both came forward and forged their relationship. to make sure that the products reach the end customers in a record possible time, which leads to customer satisfaction. And you look around, you will find hundreds and hundreds of examples of how new partnerships have come together. And the way I think every business has to reimagine itself is that I have a product or a service to sell, whom else I can partner with to make sure that my product or service reaches the fastest possible way and my customer is more satisfied. So the message that I wanted to leave here is that technology can play a big role in this new normal, and we have to just change our mindset to say that there is no competitor, everybody can be a collaborator. And how do we really leverage, and the sense in all this is speed and velocity that we need to show in changing and doing things differently. So as Winston Churchill said that every crisis teaches us few things. These are some of the learnings that I'm sharing from the Cisco's experience and from my own personal experience. It is first all about reimagining your business. I'll take a small example here. We have 16,000 employees of Cisco in our campus in Bangalore, and we actually formed a small task force probably 1 month after the entire problem started to say, can we just reimagining when things open up, how will we show up to office, how we will make sure that our employees will be safer, and how do we give that same wonderful experience that they are getting today when they are working from home. And by the way, 99% of our employees today are working from home, and our productivity levels are absolutely same. We made sure that we have retrained them and did few things, but that's the project that we really started. And there were 3 big pillars of this project. Number one, what do we need to do differently on the people side, because people have to be retrained, managers have to be retrained onto how they really work remotely along with your team. The second big leg of this is how do we reimagine your IT. And earlier we had always assumed that look, our employees will be based out of a single location, but we realized 2 months into the pandemic that 20% of them have gone to their hometown. So our IT has to completely change itself to actually go and revisit and realign with this whole new landscape which we had never imagined. I think all this you can only do if you optimize your cost, because you have to divest somewhere to invest. I already spoke about it. And hence you need to finally zero down on what is important to you. And I will remind all our leaders here that what was important to you 7 months back, not everything is important right now. For example, we work with 4 different technologies, and we realized that collaboration and security are 2 technologies that customers really want to adapt. So we have to very quickly realign ourselves. We have to augment our technology there, we have to augment our people there, and we have to also augment the training that we provide into the people. So understand that the important points which come on to me where technology can really make a huge difference. First, it's all about connectivity. You can have the best applications, but if the end mile connectivity to the millions of workers who are working from home, and 5G plays a big role there, if that last mile connectivity is not good, we'll never be able to recognize any one of these technologies. Secondly, we have seen how technology has enabled even board meetings, which never happened before virtually, are all happening virtually. Analytics is playing a huge role. Understanding your customer based on the buying past history and actually giving them the right solution on their screen the moment, and everything touchless the moment when they show up. Revenue obviously will change. You will realize, and many of you understand the revenue profiles of various companies who declare their results. The increase in revenue is coming from very different products and services which they never imagined. And I think lastly, it's all about talent. All of this will fail. While we have a situation where most of our talent is today, at least in the IT space, is working from home, and they are right now connected, but there is a fatigue which is really setting in. So we need to set the right retraining for them. Reskill will be my message around to that. And the biggest reskilling we need to do is that how does everybody work virtually and still gets connected, but still we cannot lose the culture of the company, which is what defines every single company that you work for. In the last few minutes, I just want to touch upon some of the learnings that we have from the Cisco's deployment of IT. I think first thing which comes out is that every single IT architecture has to be resilient. It should be able to with demand a 10% load to a 120% load. When we originally designed the networks and infrastructure for our customers, the usual rule of thumb was that 60% of the team will be working in office and 40% will be traveling out. Today, it has reversed to even 10 and 90. Some of the organizations have made public announcement that even when they come back to office, only 25% of the teams will come back to office, and the others will be very widely spread. Now, I just wanted to share with you this live case study out of Cisco. This is the map that I took a snapshot of 2 weeks back. Out of the 16,000 employees that we hired in Bangalore, and the contract was to work in Bangalore, but thanks to the situation, out of 1,700 of them or 1,800 of them are working out of 280 plus towns. So suddenly overnight, we had to cater to this whole distributed demand and made sure that from laptop delivery to laptop maintenance to our entire architecture, our application support, everything should be able to cater to these employees who are very comfortably working from home. We are very proud to say that we have published this, that whatever we have learned, we are sharing it with all our customers, and we call it RDE, which is the new Resilient Distributed Enterprise Blueprint, which is around three big things. How do we make sure that millions of our teams who are working from home continue to work without any productivity issues, but very importantly, securely? How technology can be used to make sure that social distancing is maintained, how every employee is safe. For example, a simple how artificial intelligence can be used, that if you're using a video conference room, how many people were there in that room, and has that room been sanitized before the other teams enter into? Third biggest trend that we are really seeing is that many of our customers have moved their more and more applications to cloud, and we need to work in an environment where you have a hybrid system, you have multi-cloud, and how do we give still the customers a complete visibility of where the workload is, how the workload is, and how do they manage their applications across so multiple workloads. So that's really how technology can really help into making sure that businesses are scalable, they are resilient, but very importantly, they are continue to be secure. And I'll sum it up my personal learnings in this last slide. I think first of all, be vulnerable. As I said, the day one, I told my team that I don't know what we will do. The only guidance I give it to them, let's each one of us talk to at least 10 of our customers every day and ask them only two questions. What is change in your business and how can we help them? Based on that learning, we put our first BCP architecture, which we actually then helped 2,000 of our customers to roll out. We're going to unlearn the old ways of doing things, and then only we will learn how the new ways of doing things. I attended a training program a couple of years back, and one of the techniques that the trainer taught us was that if you have to think innovatively, think about a subtraction technique. I think what is stopping us all is that we are sometimes afraid to disrupt. I've shared with you many examples how disruptions have added a new business line. And lastly, we cannot work alone into this. We need to learn this together. We need to collaborate sometimes with our competition for a particular thing. I think time is, we are just thinking what is my shortest time to go to the market and whom I can collaborate to reach there and still have a very big differentiation. Those are some of my personal learnings. Again, it was wonderful speaking to you. Have a good day. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, thank you for taking out time for joining this session where we discuss how we can sustain through the pandemic and focus on emerging strategies to win on work virtually. I have with me Swami, Charulata and Sulagna to discuss on some of the key aspects as we adopt to the new normal. And I would want each of you to share a brief introduction and a quick overview of the kind of work which you do, and then I can move to the list of questions that we have.
So I'll go by Chakradhar Sri Parambadur, but with a last name in the US, I always go with a Swami as my middle name and the cute and the prettiest name. So I work for Infomerica. Infomerica is an IT services company which do end-to-end business problems we solve using the technology, and we are a global company based out of the US, Europe, and India. And I lead as a COO and CIO.
My name is Charulata, and I have the privilege of leading marketing operations at Accenture, based out of India and working for the global markets. And I'm also a columnist, and I'm absolutely excited about anything that's new and innovation and transformation. So that's what keeps me ticking every day. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Chulanga Pereira. I work as the CIO for Daimler India Commercial Vehicles, which is the brand of the group company Daimler AG, which produces trucks, buses, cars, vans, and we also provide mobility services. So I take care of the India business in terms of connectivity, all IT-related infrastructure operations, as well as digitalization and digital transformation.
My first question is to Swami. Swami, we all of us are adapting to the new normal, which is working from home. We have seen so many sales moving to a completely online mode. The field sales forces now no more on the ground, and they are trying to work with a lot of inside sales teams. There's no differentiation between field sales versus the inside sales team which supports them. So how do you think that companies are coping up with this new normal? And do you think that companies will make this, work from home, permanent, or make this a long-term path as we move forward, given this is the new working style?
Yeah, so this is interesting times. First of all, I hope everyone is staying safe and healthy in this pandemic. And even though last few years everybody is working towards the digital transformation, but because of this pandemic, people have become more and more out of the force. They all have to adopt. But if you really look at it, digital technology has really transformed the consumer and the employee habits. See, we are a global company. Within a time when we heard about this pandemic, our employees have all come across into the working. And then when we are looking at from the US and the Europe, things were a little bit easier, but I have a lot of people in India, and they are all stuck in the rural area. So it was taken a little longer when there was not much infrastructure in the rural areas. But when you look at it from the customer side, now a customer is getting a different experience, because now all this digital transformation is all working about how best we can give a customer experience. And this is in fact going not only how the people were doing previously contacting the customer, but now it is giving a more and more appeal, because now you have the VR, you have the AR, a lot of the different technologies you can use and give them a beautiful experience following the agile process. Previously, you really need to wait, and also distance used to be a problem, and then people have to travel, because we always believe in the face-to-face meetings. But now here, people are available, and you can easily get either your employee or a customer on a conference call and do a product demo. So it is giving a much more different experience, and what we all are focusing towards is giving a best-in-class customer experience. So I would say it is going to be more new normal, as we always call, and the people are being adaptive. So if you look at it from March to May in the pandemic, people have been understanding what is this virus, how we really want to go. But I think by the time May and June, people have realized we have to live with it. When you realize the live with it, the mindset have completely changed, and people are working towards enabling this technology from the employee and the customer perspective.
Great, Swami. So you're saying virtual selling is here to stay for a longer run.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in fact, one of the thing is, I now have more salespeople in US because we are focusing on the US customers. But now I don't think location matters. Now people can be there more in the interest of what is your passion and how best we can sell it to wherever the customer is. And our salespeople can be now anywhere in the world. The people from Hyderabad can talk to people in Russia, or people in Russia can speak to people in US, because it doesn't matter where you are, as long as you are focusing on what is the product and the passion and how are you solving the business problems and giving a best-in-class customer experience.
Great. So what could be some of the new methods which could be adopted to sell customers in the online world? Should we prefer making telephonic calls or do video conferencing?
I think it's always going to be a combination, right? And it may not be restricted to just these two methods. There's video, there's voice. There's going to be a lot of other methods like WhatsApps and texting, and all of that's going to come into play, right? It's not going to be restricted to this at all, and it's going to be a combination. And I think what people were doing earlier was experimenting with all this, right? And I come from a part of the world which is deeply into digital marketing and marketing operations, so we've actually been adopting many of these platforms much earlier on. So it's definitely a trend that I would encourage everybody to look at beyond just voice and beyond just video, because that's the way it's going to be. And not everyone's in the same level of digital maturity in the world, right? Because it's not the same everywhere. Some are more mature as consumers and customers, some are not so much, and some have relied on traditional methods for a long time. And I think it's very quickly people are adapting, but as they're adapting, I think we've got to kind of enable that process much faster and get everyone as much as possible into these platforms and take them one step at a time, right? I mean, you can't start putting video conferencing into a group of buyers who's going to be more relying on texts, right? Or on voice. And like Swami was suggesting, I mean, in the rural areas, and this is not just India I'm talking about, even globally, it's wrong to assume that in the global markets, everybody's onto video platforms. It's not the case. And I think it's horses for courses. It is here to stay in terms of non-traditional methods of selling and non-traditional methods of collaboration and marketing. And they will come in different mixes and in different proportions.
Great. Sularna, my next question is to you. How do you build trust in the virtual world? We have seen that, unless we meet somebody physically, have the conversations, it's difficult to trust people. But, selling virtual is the new reality. So how do you build trust in the virtual world? Is it possible that we build a similar level of trust when we interact with people virtually?
See, I think it depends, and I'll take it case by case. Can you build trust? Yes. Should the human element come into play? Then that is also an yes. For instance, there are certain businesses that you can have digital marketing and sell products digitally. But then there are also businesses, for example, ours, we can never sell a truck or a bus without somebody having to test drive it. I can create all the simulators, and they can do this, and they can customize their vehicles or cars or vans or buses, but they would want to get the real feel. And you will never build trust with the product if you don't have a touch and feel to it. What I do believe will happen in the future is that the work modes or efficiencies will increase. Everybody talks about a new normal. I think the fact that we can work from anywhere when we were forced to have made businesses realize that this can increase the efficiency. Right now, people who are out of the workforce, for example, can come into the workforce, right? People who wanted to work part-time, who could not relocate with families, they're all in the picture, which means we'll become more efficient. It'll be more app-based, just like Swami and Chaulata mentioned earlier. I think depending on the maturity of not just the organization, but the industry also, you might find things becoming a lot easier to sell. But what will enable the trust factor is if we bring in authentication, or if we bring in authenticity to the apps that we put out there. What I talk about is, do we govern the data? Are we able to ensure that certain amount of security and privacy is maintained? I can use a perfect example. For example, when our salespeople go to meet a customer, we have an app. And within the app, the customer, before the sales rep comes in, is able to even track the past 14 days temperature check to make sure that the person who's coming is tested following the social distancing norms. Now, this might, of course, end after a vaccine is out, but we have to come up with creative ways to build trust so that, one, you can start selling, and then enable the people who are selling with the right tools and equipment to ensure that the customer is fully satisfied with the product he or she is buying. So I think we can get closer to building the trust. And I think it will take a lot longer before we actually start trusting the digital world in the same manner as the physical interaction that you normally have on a day-to-day basis.
What I was saying is that trust is a very, very critical factor, and you cannot really measure it. There is no real measurement, but then it is all about the feelings. And when I am talking about an CXO level, talking to my 1,000+ people around the globe, how do they really trust me, what I'm saying as a leader? How do I trust my employees, whether they are working? Because most of the times in many geographic regions, working from home is not a normal. But then as a manager, when I'm telling my person to work for 8 hours, how do I trust? And how those people, because the accounts and the finance say that They never had this working from home or remote. The people say that I'm paying them like 10 hours of job, but then I don't think they're getting. So as a leader, I think what I have seen in my personal thing is the honesty and the open communication is very, very important, because previously we seek more and more authentic conversation at the water coolers. Now you cannot go to the water coolers because there is no physical people. Now, how do I bring that to the atmosphere? So that is where usually what I am adopting is, when I'm having a leadership conference, I'm asking them more about their family, more about what they're going on. We really need to say that we are vulnerable. We are not always perfect. We always go through, as a leader, some problems. We are always good to say that I don't know if I don't know. So we need to really build that. The way how you are working, the kindness, honesty, and open communication is very, very critical factors which you need to adapt, and we need to percolate in the organization, because your direct reports may have a lot of the direct reports along the chain. So you need to process through the food chain these three qualities to make sure it is good. So that's what I just want to, it was a very interesting. So Charulata, you can add on your points. I think
Charulata, just before you add something on, just if you don't mind, Swami, I'm fully with you on the three things, but there's two other things which I also was going to touch upon. One is data backed on facts, right? Customers are now more and more accustomed to, at least what we see is, they want to believe facts. We are collecting an ample amount of data, and businesses will need to start thinking about how do you make sure that the customers understand. For example, I'll take our industry. We play a game of TCO, which is total cost of ownership, or we talk about fuel efficiency, right? Our vehicles are connected, and we can show results through data which shows the maturity of our products, the quality levels, the standards that we follow, the certificates we have. And this builds a certain level of trust on top of what you said. Now, are you able to be honest and communicate openly with your customers? So I think the whole equation goes more towards the data-driven sort of organization, where you are able to back them with facts. Sorry, Charu, you wanted to add something, no?
No, absolutely. I think I echo that completely. You said what I was going to say from a product point of view, and I was going to actually cover it as there are two levels of trust, right? One is the trust in the product, which I completely agree is data and fact-based and performance-based. Right? Word of mouth is so important, and all of us who are going to be on social media, right? Everybody's on social media putting things out in terms of what I trust and what I don't. And I trust people much more than what the brand says, right? I trust data much more than what advertising says, for example, right? Everything is to be backed by that. That's at the product level, and if it performs, nothing like it. Whether it's a physical product or a service product, it has to perform, right? So trust is about what it does, not what it says anymore, right? And that's important. Earlier, what it said could take you for some time, but today it won't take you even a day. It has to be based on those data and facts. The other is on people, right? What Swami was referring to. To me, it's not about, do people trust me? As a leader, I think, do we trust our people? That's an important aspect today, because everyone is now, pretty much everybody's working from home across the world, and we have to depend on our people to take judgment calls, to be responsible, and we can't be doubting them. We shouldn't doubt them. Our people are responsible, right? If we place that trust in them, and I've seen it, when we place that responsibility and trust in them, it just absolutely works wonders. And that's the trust, I think, which is more important than that. And that's how they will trust you as well in return.
And just as statistics wise, I think the companies which have adopted and performing with trust are more than 70% high in revenues in the trajectory compared to other people. And to your point, Charlotte, I think we need to give them empowerment, the people, and trust them, and then things will happen. So that's good. Kanishka, I think you motivated everybody to bring in or chime in on the trust factor.
Yes, and I have some data points to add. Basis the research, it is being confirmed that people reveal more about themselves virtually when they do it otherwise when they do it in person. So when you have people interacting digitally or on phone calls or on chat, they will give you so much amount of information, which if you meet them in real life, they will never share. Now, this also brings an element, how do we safeguard ourselves from aspects such as social engineering, aspects such as people, giving us attempts to hack into our systems, people, trying spear phishing or phishing attempts. So how do you safeguard? That's also an important aspect. I want to get your thoughts upon.
So the cybersecurity is very, very critical. One of the important aspect, especially in the pandemic, what we have done is we are giving them more and more trainings and bringing some awareness programs to all the employees, because there is a two aspects of it. One, now people are working remotely, so we really don't know how strong their networks are, how secure their networks are. So we as a company are giving them the awareness, because most of the problems, because I work with a lot of the cybersecurity in the US government on different projects, we have been interacting and we are exchanging the information. Now most of the 80% are above. The problem is user, because most of the people just open this laptop and then go, they don't even do the lock. And now when you are working from home, you have your family, your kids, and everybody will come. It is not that they really want to do intentionally, but because the kids and all may play. And then you have to know about the basics, who you are really talking to. Especially everything is there in the social media. Who really are you doing a basic check? A person is sending you an invitation. Are you doing a basic check to whether to accept or not? How much information can you give? The another critical factor is you are working with multiple customers. Now there is a lot of customer data. How are you protecting the customer data? Because there is a lot of the IP we are working, because we have a trust between us as a service provider and a customer. So how are you managing the trust? So there is a lot of awareness programs goes on a continuous basis. Now that has been increased more because of this pandemic. And as a technology and our internal security team, we have enabled the technology to see your dual factor authentication, and then also making sure you have a VPN tunneling in. So we have been doing, but most important thing is education and the training, which has to go on a continuous basis, because the technology is evolving, a lot of the mediums are evolving. So how do you really reach out to that? So that is what we are doing, and we have been successfully working on, because we are working on some of the very secret projects, federal projects. So we have to be very, very clear about what we do, how we do, and then who we engage. And we also engage in our background process of each and every employee who are going to be on the customer on this. So some of the works we are doing on healthcare, because a lot of the people are working on how are we going to get a medication or the vaccine, because everybody in this new normal, one thing everybody is waiting is the medication. So if I'm able to help my customers to get it without having any of these issues, so that we can easily get the medication, and then people will be better normal.
Sure. Now, Charulata, my next question is to you. You know, we have been conducting meetings in the physical world, and now we have to conduct more virtual meetings, right? Where we have to win new customers. How should we conduct these meetings? Should we keep our meetings small? Should these be one-to-one, or should we have larger groups communicating? What could be some of the best practices?
Best practices, I think, are yet to be established, right? We're all new to this at this point, and well, 7 months down the line, not that new also. But I would say again that, you know, different meetings will determine the size of the audience, firstly. So I don't think it is size-led. If it's a team meeting, it's going to be large. If it's very crucial, small group meetings and things like that. So that the size is determined by the nature of what we're discussing. But I think how to conduct these meetings, I think there is a pre-meeting, which is very, very important to get organized before coming into these virtual meetings of 30 minutes, right? And I think reasonably, people seem to be doing a pretty good job of that, as far as the meetings that I have been part of. So I think the pre-meeting and the thinking that we need to do before coming to meetings, right? And to directly address the point about long and short meetings, I think short meetings are better, in my opinion. What you can achieve in 30-minute meetings, you will not achieve. You will see that after 30 minutes, either the attention wavers, or you are prolonging the decision, right? So when you know that just 30 minutes and you have very clear-cut agenda and you know what you need to be deciding on, the decisions come much faster. And if you have the right audience there. So all of this homework needs to be done before getting into these 30-minute meetings, right? And I think if we can also assign responsibilities very quickly to who takes the decision on what, who brings in the inputs and the data, who acts as the timekeeper, who acts as the the person who kind of provokes some deeper thinking before taking the decision. These roles need to be assigned very well as well, right? So those are some of the elements to look at, and we should ensure that meetings have a diverse set of people. And not people who are completely close to the problem, because when you're too close to the problem, you're kind of going around in circles a little bit. So it's always good to have those 1 or 2 people who are a little distanced from the problem to be able to take much faster decisions and evaluate all aspects of it. So those are some of the principles around it. And of course, I mean, there are again some very critical areas where you don't need to decide in that 30 minutes, right? You do have to take them across through multiple meetings as well, but each one should be determined with a very clear agenda. So that's I think important, and minuting what's been discussed. Some of the traditional methods are still important as well.
Whatever Charulata said is all good, but what I found personally is having a small meetings with a video on is helping, because on the teleconference all people are multitasking, and then always you say, okay, can you repeat again, what did you say, can you repeat again? It's always the norm. But when you are having a video call, we can make sure that people are really focusing, and some of the body movements are also important, whether it is a customer or an employee, how their physical appearance and how are they reacting to the discussion what we are having is very critical. Because in physical face-to-face meetings, we always take our gut feeling, whether it is a closed sale or open sale or as an issue, with the body movements. And that's video conferencing, at least we are able to do that rather than the teleconferencing. Just a couple of those things we observed, and it is working well.
I share pretty much the same sentiments, but what I've also realized is a lot of the things that were not possible in physical meetings are now becoming more and more easier, right? I had never been able to take calls before. So, and I think those are certain things that I think we were able to accomplish during these, video conferences, as well as these online platforms that we are using for day-to-day communication.
It's easier said than done for a lot of people, right? It's not easy to, not everybody has done a lot of public speaking. It's not easy to just turn on the camera and start talking. People haven't been coached to do things like that. Not everybody has had to do it. There are technical people, who don't necessarily need to do that. But now everyone's having to come onto the camera and say things. So I would sometimes be a little forgiving towards those who don't necessarily want to switch the camera on, because they're very good with their subject matter. They're very good at what they're thinking, and that's why we need them in the team. And if they are a little shy of being on the camera, I'm fine with that for some time. But I think we also need to support everyone in our team to learn that craft, right? It's very important. It's no longer a marketing domain to come in front of a camera and start speaking. It is important for everyone to build that confidence, to build the skill of speaking to so many people at the same time, knowing that on these things you can raise your hand when you need to say something. You don't really cut into people's conversations. There are multiple things to it, and I think those need some kind of learning, and that's not impossible. People can get there, and we just have to be patient with some people who get there a little later than some others.
So Lagna, my next question is to you. You would have seen your field sales force move online, doing online demos, helping clients make right choices. Now, as we move back to the to the new normal, we have seen that physical interactions and physical meetings are gonna happen now. So how do you create that fine balance between online versus offline selling? You think that technology will act as a savior in the longer run?
Absolutely. I think my honest opinion is that there is no two words to it, and you cannot back down from where you are now. The question is, who's going to find the right balance and in what context, right? What I mean by that is, I spoke about data earlier. A lot of the times our sales is backed heavily by the data that we produce, and also because the global reach is becoming more and more prominent now. When you look at suppliers, when you look at your customers, when you look at even internal customers, sometimes when you have cross-functional teams across borders. So what is it that you take to the customer, and how frequently can you visit them, for example? You can't go and visit your customer, or you can't build that relationship if you are not able to travel, let's say, from Chennai to Mumbai once a week. But if you want to keep in close contact and you want to manage your key customers, then virtually you can back this, enable this. You can share certain reports. You can have apps that are developed for communication. You can build apps that can collect feedback, where you don't have to physically go and ask about a certain product requirement, but they can provide this directly to the headquarters or directly to the to the manufacturer. So I think in the future, if you look at, for example, even Amazon, they've been doing this for a while now, right? The first thing I do when I order something is I go through the reviews. Any person can come and tell me how good a product is, but I trust the ratings that are there. That's how I shortlist my products, right? So I think in the future, it will become very important for us to find that right balance, but also it will again depend on the industry. That is where I think this adjustment needs to be made, and people who are first movers will always have an advantage.
Sure. And I want to bring in Charu here. Charu, you're a marketing expert. So what Lagna is saying that e-word of mouth will hold much more significance than word of mouth when you're making choices.
I don't know what e-word of mouth will define, right, in future. I
E-word of
want to
mouth,
start.
e-word of mouth, let me define. E-word of mouth is what the customer feedback is going to be online, what other people are talking about. So for
That's
example,
what
if
I'm
you're
saying. We're thinking of e-word of mouth as the customer reviews typically that come online along with product descriptions and, on e-commerce sites and all of that. We shouldn't ignore social media, right? That's also part of e-word of mouth in a way, right? I mean, anything
Absolutely.
which is really going digital as a word of mouth is going to have a huge impact, right? And does that mean, I mean, we're talking to people also a lot more, right? These kind of calls, when I'm talking to my friends, and birthday parties now with amongst friends are on Zoom calls and Teams calls and all that, right? So now when that happens and you talk about things, or you put things up on Facebook, or you put things up on on your WhatsApp, and you send images across. Before I buy something, I'm actually putting my images across to a whole bunch of people in different groups and asking, is this good? It's not. So it's definitely. I would still just call it word of mouth in a way, whether it goes e-word of mouth, tele-word of mouth, or social media word of mouth, or whichever way, or comments and customer reviews that come online. And even for me, right? I mean, recently I was going to buy there was a direct selling group that came to me and did a demo at home. It was fantastic and all of that. And I said, look, I'm not going to invest in it. It was a huge investment, as I'm not going to buy it till I see the reviews. When I went into the reviews, they were pretty poor. And when I spoke to the person who called me up, the person said, these were employees who left us and they put these reviews. I said, no, this is important, right? There are too many reviews which are repetitive. And I know there is an issue with your after sales, right? And the big focus, I think, now also has to be after sales. We're all consuming a lot through e-commerce, right? And huge investments, you would still do more, like for an automobile, you would do a test drive and all of that. And you would get home demos for large equipments. But otherwise, if I'm buying things and my after sales is poor, that is important to me. Because I think many organizations feel e-commerce means delivery, and that's where the responsibility stops. And it's not. It is post that which matters a lot to me, and I will talk about it as a consumer, right? I'm not just a marketer, I'm a consumer first, in fact, right? And I'd be very conscious of that. So it is definitely going to be important. And my comments to products and consumer comments to products are going to have a lot of weightage. And I think organizations and brands need to focus on that. They need to focus on their online reputation management very, very well and be truthful about it, right? It's not good enough to have 10 posts from friends and people saying it's great. That will get called out at some point. This is important to be transparent and really look for, and also address, some consumers, if I put up a post as a consumer talking about my poor experience, you can't shove it under the carpet. You've got to address it, because that multiplies hugely through social media. So I would say all organizations must address the negative comments equally as they would take their positive ones.
Sure. My next question is again to Swami. What could be certain out-of-box strategies which could be built to sustain business during COVID?
Oh, actually, I would say the innovation is quadrupled in the pandemic, because especially in the US, we never imagined to order my own home, the produce. Now, I am just calling or going into the online and ordering. All the retail stores, they have a curbside pickup. So I can ask my kids to go and pick it up, because we have all the list of the items we are ordering. Now, if you think from the corporate perspective, the complete way of looking at the consumer and also the product is completely different. See, for example, we came up with a product which was there 5 years ago called Map Recruit, a cognitive talent acquisition platform. So what is happening is, most of the time today, the recruiters are really focusing on looking at all the spreadsheets, and then they are having a 500 resumes, how they go about it. But now with this innovation, now you're also having people across the globe. So this is completely changing the way how you really look at it, the job seekers. We have now technologies to match, and then you only can bring all the people around the globe to see. You can have a video interviews. Now you can do a group interviews. And also, if you really like a person, you can do an interview. Then why do you want your manager also to do the interview when you already have the recording, because you are asking the same question? So why you want the person to take more responsibility to say it again? And then we have also gone in one customer, we have created a VR, a person, we are working on a product before it goes to really into the public. If it is an MVP, how I can really see as a consumer, if I put a glasses, how do I really feel it? So I think the innovation is completely changing the world.
Right. And I think the other aspect is how do we manage our workforce during the pandemic, right? Because a new concept is coming up, which we have been talking about for a long time, something called as digital culture, right? As you spoke about now, the location doesn't really matter. It's how you can collaborate. It's how effectively you can work in teams. So how do we adapt our teams to sustain this digital culture in the longer run?
Very important part of it is collaboration as a process, right? We shouldn't take collaboration for granted and just keep, in organizations in the past, it was all about you must collaborate with people and you must connect with people. It was more a culture. Today, it should be a culture and a process. I think collaboration is structured. Collaboration is partly intuitive, partly also it has to have a certain approach to it, right? And to get the best out of it, to make it most optimized and efficient, right? And ensure that the collaborative network is also highly innovative, right? And these are things we must ensure the collaboration output delivers to, and not just people coming together in a cacophony of words and meetings in these calls, right? So that's one. The second is, I think we need to be very, very impact client business driven in our case, and in everybody else's cases. Organizations must be very output driven, very business impact driven, and customer experience driven, right? It's very important to ensure there are metrics in place for all this. Is my customer happy? Can I get adequate feedback around it? Can I create a formal process around this to periodically tell me how they're doing and how we are doing for them? All of this is part of this new way of working and sharing that information across the team so that there is more ownership, right? The second area, I think, which is very important is, apart from making the entire thing measurable, is also our people's wellness, right? It has never been more important than now to focus on not just the productivity of people, that is there, and you trust them, they will do it. Are they well? Are they doing all right? Right? It's very hard to tell in these video calls because everybody nobody wants to bring, well, I can't say nobody, but a lot of people don't want to bring their personal problems into professional lives, right? We've got to be able to see through that and ensure our people are doing well. That wellness aspect is important, and we need to really increase our support to our people to ensure they're comfortable, they're supported by the organization, their problems are taken care of, they are heard. And we have a system where they can engage with people outside of the groups, working groups that they're in, so that they can get, listeners and people who can solve their problems and not have to look at the process of delivering to the business, right? So these should be very important aspects of how our workforce comes together. Also in terms of staying connected with people, right? How do you enable a process which is not just work collaboration, but staying connected with each other? Like, we were talking about those coffee breaks and water breaks that we take. That's how do you make that happen in this virtual world, right? How do you ensure there's a moment that everybody can get away from their work and connect with each other at different levels, and bringing in communities of practice that we should share. So for example, if there's a group of photographers in the group, a group of writers in the group, or whatever, bring these communities together to be able to interact with each other and find their own network and interest groups, right? And sharing knowledge, that's the other thing. How do you enable this group to come together to also share knowledge from from across the organizations? I might be interested in knowing more about e-commerce. I might be interested in knowing more about the financial side of the business. I might be interested in knowing more about technology, right? So how do you enable and cross-skill people in this new world of collaboration?
Thanks. My next question is to Chalagna. Chalagna, I think innovation is key to sustain business. And as we talk about future of work, innovation plays a very vital role. Now, how do companies innovate while employees are working from home? What would be some of the key areas that can be taken into consideration, or what would be the new practices that would be taken into account?
So I think innovation comes in hand or goes hand in hand with collaboration. And when you see that collaboration becomes stagnant, especially when you're working from home, and I think the other two panelists, Swami and Charulata, mentioned this quite well. But if I take a tangent off of that, you will realize that long-term sustenance-wise, completely working virtually is not going to help organizations. Right? I can, at the moment, because of necessity, call a doctor and get an e-prescription. But I can't get an operation done, and I can't start inventing or start diagnosing things if I'm far away. So when you look at even 1.5, 2 years ago, the normal trend was to encourage more work from home. However, because there was not a dire need, we did not switch to that. Now we have realized that we can still be efficient, but can we be sustainable? I honestly feel not. And if you cannot be sustainable, then innovation becomes stagnant. So you can create a certain level of innovation, but when you are not together and when you don't bring in different minds together to the same room to experiment, to try things out, it becomes very difficult. And I'll only talk about automotive. That's the industry I come from. For us to innovate, we really need to go through certain quality checks. We need to simulate a lot of things. We need a lot of different people. But what has happened is innovation has become a lot easier in terms of collaboration, because now we can get insights from our colleagues sitting in Germany, in Japan, because there are tools. That is more idea sharing. But for innovation and technology to really evolve, I think working from home permanently is not going to help organizations. So when it comes to can technology really support? I think so. Because one, you are able to do work much more at a lower cost. What I'm coming from is, for example, testing. In trucks, we actually can simulate and test different road conditions. Right? We are able to test certain parts and test to failure, and we can create these virtual environments. So a lot of the times we are able to go to market a lot faster, maintaining the same quality standards, because technology has evolved. And I think in the next 5 or 10 years, this will exponentially increase, because whether you like it or not, whether you innovate within your organization or not, technology will evolve. And now technology is becoming redundant in about 15 to 18 months. So if you do not see an ROI where you invest in technology in less than 18 months, then the technology is redundant. Then a new technology comes and you'll always be, 2 steps behind the 8 ball. So I think for organizations, finding that right balance or reaching that equilibrium becomes very important when you talk about collaboration and technological enhancements using these cutting edge technologies.
I love that, right? I just want to add to what Chiragna said, because, you should, to go to market much faster, the global organizations which are better connected can actually borrow from innovations from across the world, right? It should not have to be a situation of not invented here. And that's what global organizations really do very well. And yours is a really good example, Chiragna, right? There are innovations that are cutting across all markets, and you're able to get them much faster, test, fail, succeed, whichever way it is. And that's something we must imbibe as a culture in innovation. It's not about just being innovative. It's about identifying which innovation from across the world really kind of suits your conditions very well, and you can quickly, get that off the ground for yourself.
Here in this pandemic, people are really all virtual. So we have to do idea generation is very, very easy to do, because now you are working with people around the globe. And then you can also do design thinking, which is very, very critical, and it is important how you do. So you can create a framework. You can use your cloud technologies to do an MVP and all. But again, it's specific to the industry, it varies a lot. Because in the manufacturing industry, if you don't really manufacture a product and test it on a real road, you cannot. Even today, so much technology is going on, but how many of us are ready to get operated by a bot without a doctor consent? So there are limitations to the innovation depending upon the technology, depending upon the sector. But yes, it can be expedited, because we are all asking, again, going back to our medication or vaccine, the clinical trials take minimum 10 years to do a vaccine or a medication. But are we ready to wait till 10 years with this pandemic? No, right? So we are all saying, when can I get a vaccine? When can I get a vaccine? So now people are going a little bit forward, saying that, okay, if somebody is having a real problem, maybe I can give a dose. At least it will help them or not. So you're doing on-the-fly clinical trials to the people when the drugs are coming in.
Swami, for sharing that. before we close this session, I just want to get some quick closing remarks from Chulagna, you, and then from Swami. We have seen that COVID-19 has enabled technology, and for us to sustain this in the longer run, for us to win customers, what could be some of the key things where organizations need to invest, right? What could be some of the areas you think we need to make further investments, which will help us sustain in the long run?
I think the key is get as closer to the customer as you can, whoever your customer is, right? And a customer first approach, or you start by understanding the customer, listening to the customer, but also you need to upgrade your products to the customer's needs. And this can only come from the voice of the customers. We believe that we have all the technology, for example, at our hands, but implementing that into a product and giving it maybe when the customer does not need it, is going to be a failure in the market. So I think the key here is listen to your customers, get as closer to the customers, and as organizations, you need to have the right tools. How do you connect with the customers, right? Is it apps? Is it feedback mechanisms? What is it that you have? It could be AI, and then with all this data, I think you can satisfy the customers a lot better in today's day and age than it was maybe even 10 years ago, right? Everybody talks about big data analytics and cloud computing. I mean, the amount of insights you get to a customer also in terms of his or her preferences, right? Purely by looking at the number of visits to your, for example, website, how many customizations they do on a certain product, etc., gives you a lot of input that you can take back to the customer, validate, and then put a product out into the market. So I think all in all, when you look at it, if you have the right equipment or the technology backing your industry or the business you are in to get closer to the customer, then I think that's the key. And then the last portion is something that Charulata touched upon. It's after sales. You first sell with the salespeople, but then the second sell is done by customer services or after sales. So if you don't have continuous mechanisms to keep in touch with your customers, and now that is a lot easier with the pandemic and the way digitalization is evolving, then you're going to lose out on these customers. So maintaining this, building trust as we spoke earlier, and ensuring that the right tools are available will definitely help, I think, in the long run.
Many years ago also customer is always first, but now predominantly today customer centric approach only will give you a better benefits. But then, as Charulata also mentioned and Jalagna also commented, the key is understand the customer, give them the best experience. For that, you also need to understand your industry which the customer is in, because sometimes customer is very focused on the industry, but he may not really know how the technology can impact that industry. So you need to be more like a solution architect in each of those areas, even though it may not be your business. You bring the technology into that business, and then because it's always gives you, if you are really following the new design thinking, it's all about out of the box situation, because the industry person may be thinking always the same thing. So keeping the customer centric, thinking out of the box because of the technology, and then key is the engagement right from the ideas, how the customer is really thinking, what is the problem, how this industry can be helped, then giving them what they need, and then talking about the post sales or the continuous service, because it is not one time sale. Once you do the sale, then how do you really engage the customer throughout the process and also beyond, so that we can really understand and help the customer to do, because we believe in disruption.
In today's times, the traditional methods of research and survey and asking direct questions of how the customer feels, etc., is not going to work, right? It's really got to be something about understanding from the sentiments they display, understanding and reading the behavior of the customer, right? And with all of the proliferation of digital and social media and multiple media that customers are going to be facing all the time, and content, the explosion of content all the time, you really need to understand that they're not waiting for one brand that they were at some point loyal to stick to that anymore, right? It is multiple choices now in front of them, which means we've got to stay honest, we've got to be truthful, we've got to keep engaging, and we've got to keep looking at their behavior shifts and their needs, and what is it the customer is really looking for. Be a little bit more predictive about it, and create and innovate for those needs Not because there is a portfolio expansion that is part of your business strategy right now, right? That's not going to work. And there is a need in the market, and it could be a service need as well. I mean, products, more and more physical products are going into catering to service needs of consumers as well, right? And that's what we need to keep in mind. It's not just about delivering the physical product needs that people have. How do you service it after service? How do you engage with them? Not when they have a problem, but continuously engage with them to keep understanding them better and better. And for that, data, insights, and action. These would be the three things where you will have to base your innovations on and your next actions on.
Ladies and gentlemen, with this, we have now come to the end of this session. Thank you for joining us for this session on business strategies to win customers during post-COVID-19. Please join us for the CXO Awards, CXO Hall of Fame, and CXO Preferred Awards during the program. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Shuja, and I really wanted to thank you for joining us for the Veeam session today. In about 15 minutes, I just wanted to take you through the role of cloud data management in digital transformation and how Veeam is helping our customers to really realize their vision of digital transformation. And needless to say, the pandemic has forced us to think in very different ways, and organizations are evaluating their options again and really trying to figure out where should they be spending their dollars so that they get the best return from their investments. And that also throws a lot of opportunity for us as technology providers and you as businesses which are delivering services to your customers to see how you can really reinvent the customer experience and take it to the new heights. So resource management is under pressure, and evaluating those choices has come to the fore, and as those discussions have made it to senior management and CXOs, where they're evaluating where to really invest and how to leverage their existing assets. So while these resource management decisions are being taken, it is also very, very important for organizations to ensure security and governance for their digital assets. And with the security threats looming large and an ever increasing trend in cyber attacks like ransomware, data privacy threats, etc., it's very important that while we take our services to our customers, we need to provide that confidence to our customers and partners that whosoever they're doing business with, they're very secure enterprises and have the ability to really deliver those services very, very securely without breaching any law of the land or even data privacy breach. Now, where does digital transformation figure in all this? Again, when there is pressure on organizations, digital transformation has certainly shown the way. It is not an event which just happens one day or you go and implement the system. It is a journey. And while we are charting out this journey or we are building this initiative, it is very important that we take the initial steps right, or we build the foundation in a very rock solid way. And that's where protecting data assets or information assets serves as a very good first step, or the first block of that foundation, wherein we have absolute control over whatever we have as far as information is concerned or our digital assets are concerned. And then the ability to really have our arms around it by managing them more effectively, irrespective of whichever platforms the organizations have chosen. So today, with advent of cloud, organizations are seeing cloud adoption as a very viable way of becoming more nimble, becoming more or getting more close to their customers by delivering services local to their customer base, or just improving availability of services by running them in cloud infrastructures. And thereby, therefore it is very, very important that we have our arms around that. We have the ability to manage them very, very effectively and know where our workloads running, how well they are running, and the ability to then really predictably deliver services out of those platforms. And then finally, when we have protected them, we have the confidence of really of being the keeper of our digital assets. We could unleash the potential within our data and information repositories and then use it for better customer experience, for example, or unleash the power of that information or those data environments to really speed up development of services, for example. And this is very common, where we just keep creating copies of data and we start losing control over those copies, both in terms of usage and also security. If you are better managing those assets, you have the ability of securing them, in a much better way, and also leveraging those copies of data to deliver better customer experience, or to have a better time to market for your new services, and then excel in the areas you operate. So digital transformation certainly has allowed organizations to be more sharper in their in a way where they deliver these services, and all of that is somehow connected to how fast you can consume these IT services as organizations, rather than really building them up. And that's where the role of cloud comes in. And we've seen this trend. We see it. We start with consolidation, virtualization, private clouds came into being, and now the new normal, although the word is more used in wake of the pandemic, but I think the new normal today when it comes to platforms is the hybrid cloud. I hardly meet any customers or organizations out there who are not using private and public cloud environments alike. And depending on where a particular service can deliver better returns, how well managed it is, or what sort of availability you're looking at, a hybrid cloud provides that beautiful option of placing the service in the right place for the best return on your investment. Veeam's vision in this scenario is to be able to become the most trusted provider of cloud data management services. While you're choosing platforms as organizations to deliver the best customer experience, the best service, the best product development, and then taking that product to the market, we're just supporting the whole initiative by saying, irrespective of whatever modern workloads, modern platforms, modern databases you choose to use for your business, we would have the ability of managing them better. We would have the ability of really ensuring that you are back in business in case anything goes wrong. If you're hit by a ransomware attack, if there is an outage, there is a disruption, if there is change in which your workforce is working today, for example, and a lot of it is being talked about where people have moved away from offices and data centers, and yet they have to operate at 100% efficiency. And that's where Veeam really comes into play and provides that confidence, that flexibility, that ease of deployment, and ease of consuming these cloud data management services from our platform. Cloud data management is the ability to really have data protection, the ability to ensure that you have your digital assets secured, as well as managed across multiple environments, private clouds or public clouds, running whatever workloads you feel are necessary to support your business. And then it has multiple services coming out of the same platform, which means, as we discussed, the first step in digital transformation is the ability to really protect our digital assets. And that's where backup and replication comes into being, wherein you have the ability of really creating a copy for a quick recovery, with an objective of quick recovery, whether it is on site or it is off site for disaster recovery purposes. And then the ability to really achieve cloud mobility. Cloud mobility is very, very important these days, because as we saw the trend pointing towards hybrid cloud, we don't get too much time today in terms of deciding and planning when do we move our services into a public cloud environment, or when we change our on-prem applications into a SaaS-based application. And that requires our data needs to move into these environments very, very quickly. And that's where Veeam really helps by ensuring or by delivering absolute cloud portability, not only between on-prem environments and public cloud, but also between cloud environments. And then continue to protect them and provide high availability of your digital assets in the cloud itself. Coming to monitoring and analytics, unless we know how well they are running, it will be very, very tough for us to really draw a line or really set a target for service level agreements, or draw a line for availability of those services or those workloads. So real-time monitoring and analytics, built-in AI engines into the Veeam platform allows us to see how well we are doing running our workloads, and also in case there's something which is about to go wrong, we have the ability of really rectifying this absolutely in an automated way, or by just a one button or one button authorization for taking corrective actions, based on management discretion. Orchestration and automation, the ability to really fail over environments from production to DR sites, the ability to really do automated backups and have these backup copies distributed and repurposed in a way where your software development teams can leverage them, where your application development teams can leverage them. And come to think of it, backup becomes the biggest aggregator of your digital assets. We're protecting information across the environment. We're creating these repositories of data, which can be turned back into valid data repositories, which can be used for multiple other purposes like reporting, analytics, software development. And all of this is almost zero footprint without leading organizations to buy more hardware to run these initiatives. And of course, nothing is complete without governance and compliance. Law of the land, the compliance rules for an industry, for example, these things are driving how businesses are perceived by stockholders, by their customers, and therefore it's very important that we provide that confidence through governance, compliance solutions from the same platform. So overall, it's a complete bouquet of services which for any modern enterprise or enterprises which are modernizing their workloads, cloud data management is an absolute must. And Veeam has been delivering services in cloud data management for over a decade. With that experience and about 375,000 customers worldwide, three things to remember when it comes to delivering services. Backup modernization, I think I touched upon that briefly. Please choose whatever works for your business. The ability to really go after, set your target on how your organization wants to operate in the market, and we would support you in those initiatives by supporting the platforms you choose, the databases, the cloud environments, the applications, and you would find Veeam protecting that environment, that modern environment. Hybrid cloud acceleration, as I said, the ability to move between clouds, on-prem and cloud, and also between cloud. Veeam does that beautifully. Once we protect the information, we have the copy, the latest copy. It's very easy for us to send that copy into a cloud environment, recover that copy in the cloud environment, and then continue to protect it as we move those workloads into better platforms. Cloud happens to be the better platform today, and variants of cloud and a mix of private and public happens to be a better choice today, and we would support that. And data security and compliance, very, very important. If there is a security breach, these days you don't find it in some IT section of a newspaper or a publication. You find it on the front page. We've had instances where large ITs companies, Indian large ITs companies, have made it to the front page for all the bad reasons, because not enough precaution was taken. This was not addressed proactively, and they were hit by the cyber attacks, and there was data loss and data breach, and those things have to be mitigated by the right design and the right technology, like the Veeam platform. You could really avoid such scenarios. Backup modernization, it's about really aligning backups with the journey of your organization. So if you're going after the newer markets, if you are trying to meet the demands of the newer customers, the younger generation, the younger customers who are consuming everything through digital technologies, it really needs a new digital platform. And while you adopt those platforms, you would find Veeam supporting it. Latest announcement from us is that the containers, for example, as an environment for running application microservices from that platform. Veeam used to partner with Kasten, and now the partnership and the amalgamation is even more solid with our ability to really go out there, protecting your physical workloads, your virtual workloads, your cloud workloads, your container workloads, whether they're running on-prem or running in a cloud environment. Hybrid cloud acceleration, I talked about it, the ability to really move data and continue to. What is important is that while we move this securely and with a lot of confidence, ensuring absolute data consistency and application consistency, we continue to protect that workload in the cloud as well. And then if you wish to move between cloud environments, feel free to do that as well. And through a single console, you would be able to run all these operations and then save time for your more able IT staff. With that, I just want to finish this off and give you a glimpse of Veeam and a tremendous year we had in 2019. We're running a net promoter score of plus 75. So with net promoter score, it moves from minus 100 to plus 100, and 3 times higher than our nearest or closest competitor. with operations about 180 countries, sales, pre-sales, support staff, supporting our customers 24/7. It provides a lot of confidence for our partners and customers to really work with a pure play software company which has the ability of protecting the most modern workloads, has the ability of delivering on our promises, and hence the net promoter score of +75. Very, very simple, easy to deploy, very flexible. Leverage your existing resources on-prem or any existing environments you have in the cloud. We're not asking for more investment. Very reliably, ensuring that you could recover your workloads. And when it comes to simplicity, I think it's one of the most underrated evaluation parameters. But don't you think it is important that when there is an outage, corruption, disruption, you really want very simple tools which can work for you when you really need them, and that's where Veeam really comes into play. With that, I just want to thank you for spending time with us and joining us for this session.
I'm Kalpana Singhal, Editor-in-Chief CXO TV, and we have Amrita Chaudhary, co-founder and director Gaia, as our guest today. Gaia is an IoT plus AI enterprise SaaS company providing insights as a service and service orchestration for smart sites and smart cities. Welcome, Amrita.
Wonderful to be here.
We appreciate you for taking out time and joining us today. Please introduce yourself to the CXO TV audience.
I started out as an engineer, IIT Kanpur, UC Berkeley, worked in innovation in Silicon Valley for a few years initially. Then did my MBA, moved into strategy consulting, in the US, in Australia, then moved back to India, was heading different growth stage companies. I've veered for a bit in the middle from a tech domain into heading non-tech companies as well, and then came back with friends with Gaia. And our aim when we looked at Gaia and Gaia was founded was that a lot of companies, a lot of enterprises have to look at optimizing and orchestrating and streamlining national level or multi-site level distributed operations, and what sorts of tools and technologies are can be brought together to create solutions for this. So that was really what was driving us, and that's what has taken us on our journey today to where we are.
So what surprises you most about your job?
It's the level of passion and perseverance that is required day in and day out. And though I've been in tech before and I have headed companies before, the level of perseverance and passion that is required is way different, right? So because it's your business, you do have the ability to shape it in certain ways, which is fantastic. But you also have to have your receptors on to look at what clients are saying, what markets are saying, so that you quickly you're very agile in changing course as need be, because that's what you need as a startup. And in terms of perseverance, I think when you emerge from large companies and into a startup domain, and it's your own startup, then that you need to continue day in and day out, because establishing a business, it's like a long-term race, right? And you need the perseverance, you need the stamina, you need the determination to go through the troughs, to chase or aim for the peaks and keep on going, right? So every day is a new day in that sense, and that's what has surprised me, the amount of resilience that you develop, and the amount of resilience that you're able to draw upon from within yourself.
As a person, what has been your greatest accomplishment?
At a personal level, I think my greatest accomplishment has been my ability to bring together my multiple passions and to ensure that I find a space for them in life. So if I look back to way back when I was getting into my MBA, one of the things and this is the kind of question that you get asked, what is it that you would want to do? And I think I had said that I wanted to influence not just business but society and the world around me. And I think in many different ways, through different roles over different periods of time, sometimes like, a few of them together, sometimes, at distinct time periods, I've been able to do and weave all of that together. So if I look at my, my passion for example, creativity and writing, so I've published books, I've headed publishing and design marketing companies. I do actually like technology, and I like that interplay of technology and business. So I've worked in that, and I continue to work in that. I'm on a few corporate boards. I have my family, I have my children. So I think there's social causes that I'm associated with. So I think it all comes together.
Yeah, so that's quite interesting about you. And all right, so what are the solutions and services in Gaia portfolio?
An ops tech company, which means that we're looking at streamlining the operations of what we call connected sites. And in our parlance, connected site is any a place, a building, a warehouse, a hospital, transportation hub, a railway platform, a railway coach, or a city. Any of these can be a site, and a site brings together the site itself, the assets and equipment that go in the site, and the people who operate the site, right? And what we have is a platform. It's a unified platform which brings together IoT and digital tools. We go from monitoring and measuring to insights to the orchestration of the operations of these sites that we're talking about. And the whole idea is that there's the last minute, last mile operations matters, right? That's where things happen. That's where a business interacts with its customer. That's where a product is in a warehouse, or in a a person is in a train and moving from place A to place B. So experiences or processes or the performance of a business really depends on that last mile through hardware and IoT solutions, as well as digital and automation, workforce and workflow automation solutions. We're bringing it all together into one platform. We bring the last mile into the boardroom. And the beautiful thing is that operations, it cuts across many industries. So hence, we see our clients, cutting across different industries. And so that's in a nutshell what we're doing. As a SaaS company, I mean, we're essentially, the ingredient technologies are IoT, which was hardware, so it's connected edge devices, sensors, and so on, and the software solutions that go along with it, as well as the workforce management, which is a digital platform only, right? So the way we sell it is that it's not really just about data, it's not just about the insight that we're delivering, but what do you do with that data? How can I use that data, which might be coming from a machine, from a sensor, from a user, from people, from the operations team, staff themselves? How do I bring all of that data together, synthesize it, generate some insights, generate what's working, what's not working, from those alerts or from that data, then trigger the next set of workflows and tasks that need to be done, right? So it's the whole idea of taking service orchestration as a service, or cognitive automation, as we are calling it, as a service, and bringing that to our clients. We've made it very simple to deploy and to use. So for a new client, we're really able to map what are their processes, what are the areas of intervention or automation that we will put through, and then very quickly take them from deployment to starting to use the system. Our solutions, because these are you're impacting operations, so it's really a day in, day out kind of a service. So our clients would be there with us for a year, a couple of years for sure, so that we're helping them move the needle and bring visibility and also bring accountability and so on.
Who are your marquee customers and what are their use cases?
Things that we're delivering is really a connected site and a connected workforce, which cuts across industries, right? And it's become even more critical in the post-COVID environment because of a few complementary and contrasting reasons. So one is that there is a whole move towards having digital, remote, automated operations. At the same time, service level expectations have not gone down. Safety and hygiene expectations have gone up. And there are limitations on workforce, or there is less availability of workforce because there's really a shortage of people, or social distancing is required, or what have you. So essentially, businesses need to become more productive. Right? They need to become digital, they need to become remote, and they need to become connected. The operations, the operational processes need to be connected digitally, so that fewer people can do the work and perform at a higher level of organizational performance or productivity. So this is why OpsTech as a service is becoming critical now. So we see our clients as large hospitals, large facilities management companies, building operators, retail, logistics, warehousing. So any place where there is a building and people and equipment come together is who our client is. We also have a lot of clients in transport, so airports, railways, and not just the transport hubs like the railway station, but onboard service orchestration for Indian Railways, for example, is also something that we are doing. And what we've also been able to do very successfully is to take these solutions which are enterprise ready and use them in a city setting also, because there's a lot of governance monitoring that needs to happen in the government domain, because government is delivering services to citizens, and those services either need to be digitalized, which we are enabling, or they need to be monitored using both IoT and digital monitoring tools. So again, that's one way that we're taking it to the cities domain as well.
The COVID-19 pandemic and the new normal have changed the way we do things, from everyday activities like grocery shopping to how large industries function. So with all these factors like maintaining hygiene, social distancing, etc., in such a scenario, being a smart city solution provider, what is Gaia's contribution towards fighting against this pandemic?
What we were able to do very quickly during the pandemic is to take our solution, which was being used in hospitals for workflow automation and for workforce and service orchestration of tasks, the non-clinical operational tasks of running and managing a hospital. So that system, we were able to take it to the city domain. We worked with the city of Agra. In the early days of the lockdown, we helped them progressively through the period. Initially, digitalizing a lot of the last mile, about 800 odd retailers across the 100 wards of Agra were brought online through our platform, so that essential services could be orchestrated. This was at the peak of the lockdown, and obviously as things opened, then we helped them with emergency response management services, so people could raise requests through an Agra Sarvam app on help that they needed about getting medication, getting to a doctor, reporting a COVID case in their family, reporting somebody in their neighborhood. They might need fumigation, what have you. So we were able to help citizens raise requests, and through our the AI platform in the middle, we were able to allocate the request to respondents who were from Agra Civil Defense Team, and they were then accepting kind of like Uber, they were accepting the requests and going and meeting the needs of whatever the citizen was asking for. And then from there we've expanded it and helped them bring some of their utilities services online, digitalize them, so smart water and smart sewage management and things like that. We've helped digitalize those services as well for them. So yeah.
All right, so what are the key technology solutions used by Gaia, and what are their use cases?
Starting from IoT, we have IoT gateways, which requires embedded systems and firmware over the air, and we are able to create a mesh using different IoT devices, so that if you have a large format space, then you don't need multiple devices, but you can have the mesh devices and the gateways, and reach out, fan across a larger space. We are able to deal with different communication technologies from 2G, 3G, 4G, Bluetooth, wireless, LoRaWAN, and now we are trialing out something with satellite connectivity as well. So there's different edge intelligence and edge communication technologies that we use at the IoT gateway itself, which connects to different kinds of sensors, and the sensors are then able to get data either from machines or from the ambient itself. So temperature, humidity, the number of people walking in and out. So these are all different kinds of sensors that we can put in there. We from the workforce management perspective, real-time location service is an ingredient technology. So you need to know where people are and what they're doing. We have a set of cognitive AI algorithms which are used for facial recognition, fraud detection, and so on. All of it then comes together into these digital apps and the platform itself, which brings data from both sensors and from users. So it's able to bring in two different kinds of data streams and do a lot of big data analytics on it, live streaming data analytics, rapid visualization, GIS-based reporting. We have algorithms at the cloud level itself, which are AI machine learning algorithms for optimization, for task allocation, for orchestration. So all of it really needs to come together seamlessly, because at the end of the day, we are either helping our clients or enterprises monitor the site, the building, the operational site, or the workforce, or help the workforce do certain tasks or processes with more automation and with digital tools, right? So everything needs to come together, and it's stitched together into one unified solution.
Right. So what are the main challenges in smart city deployments?
There are a few India-specific challenges that we face, because it's a tougher environment to operate in because of the harsh, not just the weather conditions and so on, but there can be power disruptions on the field. There can be signal disruptions on the field. So there's a lot of communication and power related challenges that you need to counter, especially in a city or a large enterprise context. The problem, it's a solution that we are offering, right? That you don't know what is happening at the last mile. You don't know if your last mile worker is doing what they're doing, and if they do their tasks properly, then the organization as a whole will function well, so the data rolls up. So the minute you start putting in either sensors or digital tools to enable all of this, you start seeing the data, you start seeing the gaps, you start seeing who's performing, who's not performing, who's on time, who's not on time. A task was supposed to be done in 20 minutes, it got done in 2 hours, right? So all of this starts becoming very apparent. So there is sometimes, because of this fuzzy data or lack of data, there is loss of accountability in the government and in large enterprises. So you have your strategic vision which says, okay, I need to do certain things in a certain way, but at the last mile, when the work is happening, or at the last asset, you don't know the condition, you don't know the performance, and so in a way, we are solving for that particular problem, right? And to solve for the connectivity and the power surge problem, you just need to become a lot more robust. Your operations, the operations of running OpsTech needs to become a lot more, intricate, but also smart, so that we are able to do some configuration and remote troubleshooting and all of that, so that we can, that reduces our own cost of delivery, right? So there are many different things that you need to consider when you're looking at a city solution or a distributed solution, which is looking at an enterprise customer and multiple sites of the customer that needs to come together onto a common platform. and make sure that you're ahead of the game in solving for it.
Absolutely. So how are industrial automation projects leveraging on IoT?
Industrial automation and like a lot of the equipment that go into infrastructure today has already become very smart, right? So which means that there's a lot of information that is coming inbuilt with these large pieces of equipment where IoT used to be there before. So today IoT really has transformed to see, okay, what are the gaps which are not being captured by the larger equipment or infrastructure equipment that is there in buildings or in operations, and fill in the gaps through additional data acquisition. But also what do you do with this plethora of data, right? You have all of these machines which are generating data by the seconds, and it's all coming in. So this is where our the entire automation and orchestration platform comes in, that we're able to take in data from these different streams, analyze it, see what is happening, where are the gaps, are we meeting performance levels, are we not meeting performance levels, can we see that performance level is dipping and hence I need to take some preventive or proactive action now, which means I need to generate some triggers and alerts to some last mile people who will then go and do the task that requires to be done at the last mile, right? So all of this needs to be seamlessly orchestrated. So you're really building on industrial the large scale industrial automation that is there, and you're taking it to this seamless machine people interaction through this OpsTech platform, right? And and that to some extent is the future where man and machine comes together, and we're looking at organizational productivity and saving business costs and reducing lags or delay in responses, or improving the lifetime or of machines and so on, so that you improve the business profitability or the business drivers at the end.
Yeah. So most IoT projects fail because there is no proper marriage between IT and OT. While IT succeeds, what are the measures to put OT in place?
That's sort of exactly the space that we are in, because if you're looking at operations tech and ops tech, really it's IT and OT from a technology perspective need to come together, right? So you need to have OT would mean all your the IoT devices, the sensors, the streaming data, and the IT is from the people, and bringing them together and delivering the insights and delivering the orchestration. But there are two elements, two key elements why things fail, and it is not because of technology. Okay, technology, I think over the last few years, it has become a lot I think stronger, your component technologies that come in terms of the connectivity, solutions which are there. The hardness of solutions has really improved over time, but it really fails because of two things. Right. So one is related to this whole idea of integration or synthesis, right? And the other is related to people. So the idea of synthesis is that a company today or an enterprise or even a city client really doesn't want 20-30 different streams of data and not know what to do with it, or have 20 individual solutions running and trying to draw inferences from each one, right? So you need to be able to stitch your solution into the business process of the organization and be able to do that in a way which is very rapid, right? So it's not it's what we have is a SaaS platform, so we're really not it needs to be quick. It needs to be quick deployment. But you need to help people synthesize a lot of information and take action, right? And the action could be, I need a systemic improvement. I'm able to see how rate all the 20 people and see their productivity over a period of last 6 months and see who's my better performer, who's not a good performer. I can see how my different machines in different parts of my building or across my national chain, for example, for Amul, we're monitoring their warehouses nationally. So they need to know how each warehouse is performing, and hence be able to look at their the third-party warehouse owners, and the quality of the product needs to be assured through that distribution chain, right? So you need to be able to stitch that information together, which means you need to synthesize many technologies, and you need to create that end-to-end solution. So that's the first thing, right? The second thing is the human factor of IT and OT, or any technology for that matter, right? And people need to adopt it, and adoption fails because of two things. One is that your interfaces, where people are interacting with your solution, they are clunky, they are not user friendly, right? And then people find it difficult to adopt. So the solution really needs to be that easy at the last mile, so that the last mile frontline worker can also use it. But there's enough complexity packed into it so that at the CEO level, they are able to infer a lot of information and get some performance parameters so that they're able to take action, corrective action, responsive action, predictive action, whatever action they need to take, right? So it needs to be seamless at both ends, at the CEO level and at the frontline worker level, right? And so that's a design question, right? Your interface design and all of that needs to be really good. And then the second thing is motivation and alignment of motivation, and a lot of projects fail because of that. So it is not really because the technology was not good, it was because people felt threatened by it. If people feel threatened by it, they will not adopt it. If they don't adopt it, there will not be enough data to prove that it was effective and efficacious and it had an impact, right? So you need to make sure that everybody is in the journey of digitalization, of using a new technology. It's not scary, it's easy to use, and you're not using data to penalize people, but and you may, organizations, obviously, if you're looking at productivity of people, you will have certain decisions that come out of it. But as you're rolling out, you need to tell people that they can be rewarded through it also, right? Because it's very easy when you're bringing in productivity of people or productivity of different locations or sites or functions or so on, you're able to see how people are performing, and you can use it to motivate them to work better, and then that becomes a driver for alignment. So alignment at the line staff level, alignment at the CEO level, again, that's fairly critical.
Right. So what are the key focus areas for Gaia in the next 18 to 24 months?
We're at a stage where the product is fairly robust, it's fairly seamless, and we have taken it to multiple different kinds of clients, and it's running at scale over extended periods of time for multiple very large clients that we have across. So the idea now is to further twofold. One is to enrich the product a little bit more, to add in more analytics, to improve the AI algorithms that we have. So really improve the feature sets, improve the functionality, improve the analytics, the reporting, the visual outputs that we provide to our customers. So all of that. But increasingly, our focus is to take the company global. So I'll be very honest, when we started out, we were really looking at seeing how we can use technology to transform India and Bharat, right? And we worked a lot in that. And so we have made sure that our products are hardy to cope with the really harsh requirements that India and Bharat requires. But at the same time, we are seeing that these problems cut across geographies, they cut across locations, across use cases. And we are seeing interest in global markets, right? So now a lot of focus is on taking it to global markets. We have set up an entity in the US, so obviously in that market, but also in other markets, South America, Middle East, and so on. That we're looking at how do we take the solution, which has potential to be from India but for the world, and take it to market.
That was nice, Amrita. It was a complete pleasure interacting with you today. Thank you so much for joining us.
It was really a pleasure to be here, and wonderful having this conversation.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for giving me this opportunity to share one of the perspectives that Dell Technologies has on the hybrid cloud adoption. So we'll briefly touch upon three areas, beginning with the tenets of hybrid cloud, our take on workload profiles, and an introduction to an exciting next-gen platform that we have recently unveiled. As is being seen all around, technology is indeed changing every industry. We see traditional industries like agriculture and farming using edge devices and drones for smart farming with big data and to help and optimize their yields and livestock. In the retail and financial services, the companies are moving increasingly sophisticated services online and making them mobile friendly to better understand and engage with their customers securely and from anywhere. New technologies are propelling the next wave. Technologies like big data and analytics, industrial and consumer IoT, and of course the increasingly powerful networking and hybrid cloud infrastructure that supports this all. Now with the global economy going digital, it's critical organizations transform to meet this growing need. IDC estimates 60% of the global GDP will be digital by 2022. This means that even for physical goods, 60% of the revenue in the value chain will be derived via digital means. Now, competitive advantage, therefore, will increasingly be a result of insights derived from the data and the software that drives the digital experience. Now, for this reason, organizations will achieve success by doing, being more digital services being powered by the data. And to do this most efficiently, it means navigating the world of multi-cloud. Now, in terms of the cloud approach, we firmly believe that the cloud is not a destination, but more of an operating model. Also that it is no longer a conversation of either a public or a private cloud, but more the strategic use of hybrid cloud. Therefore, it's important to note the three physical laws that will impact this digital multi-cloud world of ours: the laws of physics, laws of economics, and laws of land. With the laws of physics, we look at the data gravity. So with the humongous volumes of data, it is a wise strategy for compute power to kind of gravitate towards the source of data, which is the edge locations. In the laws of economics, we see that consumption economics versus capital heavy investments have kind of trade-offs, and depending on usage profiles, consumption based can also become quite cost prohibitive at times. Lastly, we are increasingly conscious of the laws of the land, the compliance and data sovereignty that add a new wrinkle to this cloud. As organizations and governments have become more data savvy, the requirements to protect it have become that much more advanced. This means data which could flow freely across borders or be exposed might now, by legal decree, be constrained, right? The implications of getting it wrong then can be quite severe, and as such must be a consideration when making decisions on where the workloads need to reside. But you see, the narrative that the data centers are going away has proven to be quite false. 92% of the respondents to ESG Research's hybrid cloud tipping point analysis indicated that their cloud strategies were very much inclusive of having an on-prem data center. Also, we saw about 83% of the organizations valuing actually the consistency of infrastructure from their data center right up to the public cloud. And furthermore, they found that 77% of the respondents have started pulling some sort of workloads back on premises, popularly being referred to as cloud repatriation. Now, this isn't to say that the public cloud isn't working, but rather that the organizations are realizing certain businesses and application requirements can create a dynamic where the workload is best suited to be on-prem, right? And for this reason, the organizations must now start thinking about cloud as an operating model. That means it's because when it is just as a place, it means that the workloads not in a public cloud kind of fail to benefit from all the attributes of this important thing, which is the data. Now, the question is, where does this data really emanate from? It comes in from increasing multitude of applications. Now, we at Dell Technologies know some of these applications very well, are specialists in some of them, and also some that we don't know really much about, right? The problem, however, was that not only the growing number of applications, the volume, the velocity, the pace at which these applications are coming to our business, but also the changing data that is involved in these applications, which is becoming increasingly disparate, diverse, and distributed. Now, our job is to be the workload specialists, right? Whilst we don't know all the applications very well, what we do understand incredibly well is the workload profile and its characteristics that they generate. Now, what we can then do is create a smaller number of application profiles or characteristics, a smaller number of buckets to say so, which gives us an opportunity to then consolidate all of these applications into these multitude of buckets that I showcase out here. And then what we do is we start looking at how do we build a service catalog around it, right? Once we've identified the different workload buckets, whether it is ERP, OLTP to analytics, we start thinking about the underpinning service profiles that we are trying to build, right? They must be around performance, latency, around data gravity, around the regulations, availability, and security, and probably a mix of all of this. And perhaps we did not have some of these considerations before, like usability, user experience. But once we have these profiles defined, we can now see that these service catalogs, what they look like, how many different services do we need, because we don't want it to become too cumbersome and complex, but we want to make sure that we have the right infra which is underpinning it and providing the exact characteristics that we have defined, right? And then we start thinking about which application and which workload belong to those right service profiles, what user experience is being sought. Based upon those considerations, we'll then start putting in workloads in the right service catalog, right? So there might be some sort of charge mechanism, charge back mechanism to the business. We'll have different charges associated with those different tiers of service, which is a very important part of trying to build this service catalog which you see out here, right? Now let me superimpose these workload profiles into what we call as the grid for the 4 IT operating models. Now on the left hand side, if you see, we have the physical and the virtual. These are typically associated with enabling IT to construct infra, and the operations are more change process driven. When we come to the right side, we see that we are moving to a as a service model, right? Infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, or container as a service, which are more cloud-like, which enables you to consume infra, enabling a self-service model, a fully automated chargeback. And as it is, you as IT see a challenge of trying to rebalance your workloads and resources across all these 4 operating models. Essentially, there are 3 types of workload optimizations to really think through. On the leftmost side, you see certain workload types like your mainframe. Certain vertical apps such as EMR are always going to be physical and kind of remain on-prem, right? What we want to help you do with these workloads is kind of modernize them and start looking at how can you build in increasingly efficiencies and try to reduce the cost parameters around it, right? Your high-end workloads, which are more usually the Oracle, SQL, SAPs of the world, may be virtualized today, but to move to a infrastructure as a service model, you start to look at optimizing them from an automation standpoint, right? And your emerging apps are which are there to design to launch new services or kind of drive your AI or IoT initiatives are probably being developed in a DevOps environment, which are already optimized, and you're looking at a business agility around that. And for each of these, you need to have the right infrastructure solutions that can meet your business SLAs, right? Now, let me illustrate this with real life examples that has actually panned out in the case of Seagate Corporation in trying to adopt the IaaS model, and Santander Corporation in trying to adopt it in a PaaS environment, right? So for Seagate, what we did was, this is basically a money transfer services organization operating in 130 countries across Latin America and Mexico, because now the customer couldn't really operate fast enough given their on-prem infrastructure, which was virtually becoming a storage zoo with a lot of storages from multiple vendors, compute coming in from multiple vendors. They thought that it might make more sense to start moving into an AWS environment, to say so, to just adopt a public cloud on an as-is basis. But guess what? Within less than 3 years, they were paying $90,000 per month in AWS, growing rapidly at the rate of 50% year on year. So what the customer did was they engaged with Dell's SPS team and discussed the ability to implement an on-prem cloud-like operating model with highly automated HCI technology and complete the consolidation of their environment, which would save them millions. Now, through a meticulous business value assessment, which is a very mature tool that we use, we measured every metric associated with their current business on an as-is basis. We then compared that against our proposed VxRail solution, showing a whopping 1,245% ROI and a $16.8 million net benefits through our proposal, because it was quite a large project. The solution rightly then comprised of the industry's fastest growing hyper-converged solution, which is a VxRail combined with VMware's licensing policies, all centrally managed through our VxRail manager interface, a GUI which was very similar to what the customer was used to from a vCenter standpoint, and thus help them trying to reduce the time to market. When it came to Santander Consumer, which is kind of a car finance company, which is part of the Santander banking group, known more for the respectful banking, when Santander wanted to reduce the data center footprint and leverage software-defined storage as a means of delivering an agile and cloud-like experience, they opted for Dell's VX Flex solution, right, or the Power Flex solution, which it is now called. And the Flex OS provided Santander with a very highly scalable, flexible, and resilient platform. The Flex OS was able to reduce their database batch processing time from 7 hours 23 minutes down to less than 4 hours, and guarantee that the mission critical business intelligence is available to the business at the start of each working day. Now, due to the many-to-many rebuild operations that is inherent in the Flex operating system architecture, an entire node of 25 terabyte was reprotected in just under an hour during a testing which easily kind of exceeded the bank's resiliency success criteria. Right, and doing the same test on competitive platforms took much longer time. So as a result, Santander kind of selected us, and this has become their platform of journey on the infrastructure standardization on a single platform that can, kind of handle any kind of block workload that the customer would have. So these are two classical examples I thought might make a lot of sense for you all to relate to as to what we are doing when we are looking at this kind of approach. Please remember that, it is all about understanding the workload diversity that your environment has, right? Now, by using an Encompass tool, what we did is we analyzed over 250 accounts with 1 million VMs. We found that on an average, 80% of the VMs were associated with general purpose workload, which are kind of compute CPU intensive, right? These are the general purpose virtual labs that most organizations have that can be fully software defined and automated by providing a massively simple environment with VMware kind of for a consistent operations control plane. And also these 80% of the VMs are kind of were using only 50% of the storage, which is a classical fit for, an HCI platform, like our VxRail platform I discussed in the CG example. Now, within the same environment, the balance 20% of the VMs were supporting data intensive workloads, right? Notice that a very small quantity of the VMs are utilizing a disproportionate amount of infrastructure resources, which means 20% of those VMs are actually utilizing 50% of the storage, while the vast majority of the VMs were just utilizing the balance 50% of the storage, right? Now, these are, there are also these other workloads which are, very specialized, high value, mission critical virtualized apps that typically require the three-tier architecture, which needs to be optimized with as much simplicity and automation as possible. And along with that, obviously outside the scope, we also had the virtual, and from the virtual environment, you also had the physical workloads, and that continue to be a fit into the classical 3-tier. And then you obviously have the file and object, which also aligns into a 3-tier architecture. So you need to really look at your workloads, look at what is the best platforms to really support each of this, and then take a decision around it, right? Now, with such prevalent use cases evolving, I would now like to just introduce to you how Dell Technologies is redefining the storage industry with the release of the next generation platform, which we call as the Power Store. Let me quickly do a 3x3 summary for you. Power Store is, best explained on its 3 pillars of being data centric, intelligent, adaptable, very unique in its concept. As a next step, I would encourage that your teams do a deep dive on a few of these topics in more detail by leveraging our customer solution center. You can block an hour and do a much more bigger deep dive into this exciting technology. With that, I'll end my session. Thank you so much for your time.
Morning, good evening, and I think all over the world who joined this session. Today we are going to talk about a very interesting topic on multi-cloud and hybrid cloud to accelerate digital business transformation journey. So I have very well respected and experienced CXOs, precisely CIOs and CISOs. So let me introduce now one by one. Mr. Prasanjit Mukherjee, he is CIO, Team Computers. Thank you, Prasanjit, for joining this panel discussion. Mr. Kapil Mahajan, Group CIO, Safe Express. This is a well-known logistics company. Mr. Jayanta Bhaumik, Group CIO, Isharam Industries Limited. Dr. Mukesh Mehta, CTO and CISO, Bajvika and Karani Securities. So with this note, without much explanation about the topic, I would like to request the panelists to share what is that change happened in the business in the last 4 or 5 years, and why people are talking about this multi-cloud hybrid cloud? What are the trigger points? What are the new trends, new shifts happening in the market and also at our business side, and why we are talking about the multi-cloud? So I request probably to begin with Prasanjit, you want to share, and then I request other panelists also to share their thoughts. Thank you.
Hello, and thanks, VSR, for giving this opportunity to speak out in this August forum. This trigger point, what you have been mentioning here, it was a trigger point earlier also, but I think due to the COVID times, the long-term triggers have been short now. Okay, now people are actually thinking of moving into this kind of a migration from on-prem to cloud and bringing in of all digital technologies here. So I think this is a very pertinent questions which I put forth here. See, the topography of today's IT organization is made up of applications. Okay, each with varying and often similar requirements. One function asking for one kind of requirement, another function asking for another kind of a requirement, and as to how and where they must be managed. Okay, so hence the CIO is continuously searching for that best solution when it comes to meeting the IT demands of their organization. Okay, so in long term, the on-prem workload, okay, which we have been managing since many, the traditional kind of a workload management. So in long term, the on-prem workload has issues of legacy system. There are many organizations who offer SaaS-based solutions or services. Okay, now they have this compliance requirement. Okay, so if actually they look for this kind of a migration, these are the trigger points. Okay, so they get a flexibility, scalability, control, and in some cases, most cost-effectiveness solutions what you can think of. Okay, the best scenario is a cloud for disaster recovery. Nowadays, during COVID period, people are looking for business resilience, business continuity, disaster recovery. How can we reduce the cost if they don't want to have a capex infusion in their business? Okay, how do they look? So the best scenario is a disaster recovery model. Okay, where it has several benefits over traditional DR setup, like setup cost, getting virtual machines, snapshots of virtual and physical machines at the primary data center, and a faster recovery time, what they need. Hence, for a CIO to get the sweet spot, a hybrid cloud or multi-cloud strategy is simply more practical since it allows them to adopt a value-driven approach to technologies that best organize.
Okay, that's great. I think you raised a very important point, like the COVID-19 times that has changed even the spectrum of the cloud environment, and disaster recovery is another very important item. The resilience is the key today. Thank you so much. So, Dr. Mehta, you want to share your thoughts in contribution to Prasanjit? So, why multi-cloud or hybrid cloud we are talking heavily today?
I agree with Prasanjit what he said. The COVID scenario has changed the mindset and the approach of the not even the CIOs but the enterprise also and the OEMs also. The things have changed. It has forced people to revisit, relook everything. But let's go back 10 years back when we started on the cloud journey, early 2010, 2012. So at the 2010-12 we started. And at that point of time, it was just a beginning, a touch. Okay, let's have something on cloud. So it took 3 years from 2012, 11 to 2014, 15 when things really started moving on the cloud. So that was the time when the things for the organization in 2014, 15 started moving thick and fast on the cloud. So that is where the one workload, two workload, or three workload was moving on the cloud. So that has created a situation where now in the last 4 or 5 years there are multiple workloads on the cloud. So what has changed is that the CIOs or the OEMs are selecting the cloud as a services as a preference or as a depending on the each workload. So now what has come as that people are on a that is where the multi-cloud has triggered actually. So now one workload is on one different cloud, two is on second is on different cloud. So that is where the difference, the multi-cloud has come into picture. Now it is like cloud of 4 years back is inevitable. Now the multi-cloud is also inevitable. It has to have a multi-cloud. You can't say that I'm settled with one particular OEM or one particular cloud vendor, whether it's even in this thing hybrid or in private cloud. So you have to have all cloud. So that is where we need to. This is where it is creating a trigger point. Everybody is now going towards a multi-cloud.
So what Prasanjit was saying, it gives you the biggest advantage is that it gives you various cost optimization as a CIO with the COVID scenarios and all those things. The multi-cloud don't depend on the cloud on a particular vendor where somebody is giving a good clause all those things. So you can look into a scenario where you have a cost benefit. Then a multi-cloud, when you have multiple partners, multiple OEMs, it gives you various automations also. So your workflows and other things are getting into streamline. So these are the things which are the trigger point for having a multi-cloud environment in the enterprise IT. So that is where this thing.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Mehta. Kapil, I probably put a question. Yeah, we are all from technology side. We are not from. Okay, we have some of you might have moved from line of business to technology, whatever it is. Is it what sort of requests come to you from the business folks? Okay, yes, I agree. Somebody say I need this application. It might be running on Salesforce and their cloud might be different. I am running SAP Oracle on a different cloud. I am running AWS or Azure. There are multiple clouds are there. But what has triggered you come out with a multi-cloud strategy where there is an alignment with business? That means the business is asking, hey, this I want, this I want, this I want. What is that? What is that they asked you? So you come out with multi-cloud strategy. When always we have to align with business, right?
Yeah. Pretty apt question, Sir. I think as Prasanjit and Dr. Mukesh pointed out, even before COVID, right? I mean, if you look at the business landscape, things have drastically changed. Why? Because especially in India, if I talk about it, is that the way the people are consuming information and how they're interacting with technology has become a very commonplace now, right? And a lot of those ease of use of technology that you do as a end user, you would want to see that happening in your business applications as well. So your business applications, I mean, we all have worked on the old systems, name the partners, but how they're structured and traditionally designed, that is not in line with what the world wants to see today, right? Even as a user, I want to work on an application probably which is similar in look and feel and has the same ease of working on probably how I work on a WhatsApp platform or a Facebook or a LinkedIn, right? So I think that the pace of innovation has changed, right? The life cycles have come down. The business expectations have gone up in terms of how do we compete, how do we bring a product into market sooner, and a lot of those competitive differentiations have forced us, I have forced users to move into cloud and now multi-cloud and hybrid cloud, right? So I think they're all offshoot of eventually supporting how business needs to structure today, which is more around, so it needs to be very agile, right? So you need to compete with startups today, means that you need to be agile as an organization, right? So I think agility is a major reason why, or a trigger point for organizations to kind of move from the monoliths or from the old school to the cloud now, and now from within cloud, how do I move across clouds and tap into the features that are, or the the strengths of each cloud, right? So there are certain clouds that work very well when you're working on a big data set. So maybe my machine learning use cases, my data science use cases can fit very well, right? And then there are other clouds which are much suited for the Google Cloud for something related to Google Maps and things like that. So again, I think flexibility, scalability, agility, and third important aspect would be improved risk management, right? Because that is also a very important component of business today. And a multi-cloud strategy gives you that coverage against risk, not being tied up to a particular vendor. You could kind of move your workloads around. You have the capability to do that, right? And also, I think the fourth important criteria, sir, I feel is competitive pricing and cost advantage, right? World has moved from CapEx to OpEx, and multi-cloud just kind of works very well in that kind of environment. You can't be tied up to one cloud. You've got to look at the cost advantage. Everything is fluid. Gone are the days when you bought a hardware and you're stuck with that IBM server or a Lenovo server or whatever. Now you got to relook at your cloud every day because it's a perpetual cost that you're paying. Pay as you go model makes you kind of always be on your toes, right? So that is where multi-cloud, I mean, as Dr. Mukesh pointed out, need of the hour, and it's being compelled by the business need to kind of be agile but still be competitive and still be cost conscious and still manage budgets.
Fantastic. So I think that's great. You brought out very important points like agility, innovation, and the product life cycle span. I mean, when we all started career, probably we used to get the mobile phone 4 months to 36 months. Even I mean, we were managing big ERP scale like 100 countries rollouts and all. You remember 1.5 year, 2 years, big rollouts. Now today, at cloud ERP scale, you want to do it in weeks, right? So the speed at which you want to get the products, innovation, risk management, and the best cloud. Probably few things probably can work on few clouds very well. So that's great. Thank you so much. So Ajayanta, so what do you think? I mean, this multi-cloud strategy, is it really required, or is it overhead, or really the business really requires that? So what do you think? Why this multi-cloud strategy is picking up very heavily today?
See, when it all started, we really thought there would be a common set of standards, common working model, common ecosystem would develop around the cloud ecosystem, which we thought would replicate what happened in the last 40 years in the network and securities domain. So when we started, we used to have so many standards, but later on we converged into a common global standard where today in my system I can use any device, any product, and I can plug and I can get it running. That due to the very different kind of evolution in cloud, very different kind of the way the various cloud providers have come up could not materialize. So we still work in sort of proprietary standards in each of their domain. So once I started some application and I migrated my ERP, and then probably due to some mindset, I wish to deploy my DR to another cloud. Rather, we are not bothered about staying in a multi-cloud environment. We rather look forward to a multi-cloud ecosystem where monitoring and controls, compliance, and those are handy and comes in the hands of organization and CIOs, that we have a dashboard, we have a single point of control. We can manage multi-cloud. If that's available, we are not bothered about multi-cloud. I think that's the way we need to live going forward.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Jayant. I think it's quite interesting justification, which is very much required. Multi-cloud is required based on the business needs and what are the changes happening at the business side, and also the natural calamities. It's not only just business, right? The market shifts and also the nature shifts. Today, the nature shift is causing really a great challenge for all of us, right? So I think all those things are really accelerating this multi-cloud journey. The next immediate question, we talk about in general what basically triggered and why this multi-cloud. Just to give intro, like we talk about a product today, the car is a big software system, right? I mean, unlike in the past, or any product is a big software system. We from IT never imagined like that. Operational technology was not in our radar in the past, but today the operational technology, of course, information technology is there, communication, collaboration technologies, maybe 3D printing tomorrow. So there are so many things are coming in, and so many different systems are coming in. What are all the workloads on the cloud or infrastructure, which requires computing power or the network bandwidth perspective and security perspective or storage perspective? And then the cloud is basically managing these three resources, right? Mainly, of course, there might be so many other things are there, security and all. So what enterprise workloads today causing us to go for a multi-cloud? Enterprise loads were there for last 60, 70 years, from mainframe, client server, internet. Now today we are talking digital. So what is the difference from the past enterprise workloads? The past was traditional businesses. Today we are talking about digital businesses. So what are all the different type of enterprise workloads emerged? Can you please share some of your thoughts? Maybe I'll start with Kapil. Can you please share your thoughts on the difference in the past, traditional businesses and digital businesses, what are the different enterprise workloads propagated?
Right. So interesting question again. So I think what has changed, VSR, is as I touched upon earlier, is organizations now need a smaller life cycle to manage new product development or new service rollouts. And by design, the old model always used to be, you always at one point in your career in IT would have faced it that, oh, sorry, we don't have enough compute, we don't have enough storage, you ordered it, you got to wait, and once that's provisioned, and that whole process itself was very slow by design. You were constrained by the kind of capacity that you have built in, because again, you used to do it as an annual exercise, and it was very difficult to predict that capacity. You would either end up over predicting or you will end up under predicting, right? So it was never an optimal game for any IT company. And the bigger you get, the bigger it becomes a challenge and a problem. So I think what has really changed is that the pace of change itself within business requires today that you got to be nimble, and technology or hardware or compute or resources cannot be a constraint to any of the technology projects that are done today, right? And business understands that, and that's why you would have seen that there's a lot of push even from a lot of businesses, not only the tech side but even the business side. Okay, let's solve this problem, move on the cloud, but let's not compromise on the pace of change or the need for having an application ready within a given period of time. So I think all really kind of forced companies to relook at how they provision the entire data centers and their hardwares and the whole licensing around it, and focus more on the actual agility side of things, and see how it can be an enabler to kind of probably come out with totally different business models to kind of strive in today's world. I think that fundamental shift has happened, VSR, that has kind of changed the game.
Sure. Thank you. So maybe I'll continue this question to Jayanta. I'm sure you have been working, Kesharam Industries having, I think it's like a conglomerate. There are many products also might be there. So what is that? I mean, do you see a different type of applications emerged because of the business looking for? That's where you are going for multi-cloud and all. I mean, when I talk about workload, it could be too much of data is coming in from social media. Today, transactions are not just done by human beings, right? They are done by things like car is doing a transaction or a refrigerator is doing a transaction to order some of the items which got over in the refrigerator, right? So that means the workloads, it's not human beings, it's beyond that. So the workloads are going up. So what do you think, what is the change you observed in the enterprise workloads in the last 5 years?
Our situation is a little peculiar in the sense that the conglomerate across lines of businesses, which are cement, tire, and rayon primarily. Traditionally, the cement business has not adopted SAP as the business ERP, while rest of the line of businesses are on SAP. So the journey has been very different in different direction, and very recently we started the cloud journey with the SAP enterprises which are moving to cloud, and that definitely has a separate roadmap. So cloud is a combination of lift and shift and upgrade and all that happening in phases, and it has its own DR requirements. While the other business, which is cement, is traditionally on Oracle and definitely doesn't follow the same set of requirement and expectation that the SAP businesses follow. So while we have a different kind of infrastructure, different kind of compliance, different kind of integrations, along with the statutory requirements, which are the general statutory requirements like GST, the e-invoicing, e-way bill, and all that, along with other standard integrations with bank and etc. would follow a very different set of standards and interfacing requirements. And definitely the same vendors and same interfaces will not work for non-SAP business. So definitely we are heading for a multi-cloud environment. Okay. While certain things work in AWS better, certain things integrate well in Azure, and the tools and dashboards on offer are different. So it would gel well with certain business will gel well with certain offering. So we are heading for a multi-cloud environment, and with that in mind, we are actually while evaluating, we are evaluating all the major cloud providers, keeping the priorities in mind and also the thoughts in the background that at some point we'll utilize and work with all of them. So with that in mind, we are evaluating all of them with all kinds of parameters, not only keeping the SAP or Oracle in mind. That being one criteria and evaluation points. The others are definitely cost, because certain vendors are good in certain areas of costing. Some are very smart in DR, and it also doesn't go in a linear fashion that you can't just level AWS and AWS is doing good in this area. It also depends on the partners working with them. The partner ecosystem also determines a lot in selection of the cloud. Okay, so that's also influencing the roadmap and the decisions. So right now we have started the SAP cloud journey, and we are preparing the roadmap for the other part of the journey, and in that roadmap we are working towards that direction, and working on a very comprehensive cloud assessment workshop, and those activities are going on at the moment.
Okay, thank you, Jayanta. Thank you so much. I think it's giving a sort of a great confidence that if you have, in fact, you have heterogeneous businesses, if I'm not wrong. So I think the workloads might be different, the requirements might be different, but so there I think it really go well, I'm sure. Thank you so much. So Prasanjit, in the interest of the time, very quickly, and also I'll ask Dr. Mehta very quickly, can you give me 3 additional workloads? What you think got from the past into our enterprise perspective, cloud perspective?
Organizations currently are accelerating their digital transformation efforts based with the changing competitive environment, okay, and intensified customer expectation. These are the 2 things, okay, like competition as well as customer experience and expectation, and keeping up with the trends of this digital transformation. Now, in this digital era, business innovation is highly IT dependent. Okay, any kind of a business innovation, what you want to do. So, in order to meet these demands, IT leaders are increasingly leveraging a variety of IT environments, including on-premises, infrastructure, hybrid, or multi-cloud. Okay. Now, the digital business, which we are talking about, requires a real-time data regression, data availability, data visualization, data analytics, data compute at the edge, and data intelligence and data insight right way there. Okay. Now, these workloads have definitely changed. Okay, and because of this, I will just give you an insight. Like earlier, it was more of a lift and shift. If you talk about a cloud migration, okay. Now we have insight that it is not only lift and shift. People are actually looking for analytics on cloud, security on cloud. Okay, because this is what the digital transformation the business people requires. Okay, the business X-ray. If your entire compute is working on cloud. Okay, so the earlier workloads were mainly around legacy systems, business, IT, OT, integration of applications, ERP. However, the current workloads are towards business efficiency and competitive edge, business X-ray, real-time decision taking, cost optimization, user and customer experience, okay, cross-functional collaboration, and high level of security. These are the points where actually people are. This is the reason why they are actually moving, and these are the area for the digital transformation where organizations are living. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much. That really gives a lot of insight. I mean, the lot of computing power required. Analytics is not easy, right? I mean, you need to have a lot of computing power, storage, and all. So I think
everything requires the edge now. You know.
All right. Yes, yes. Thank you so much, Prasenjit. So, Dr. Mehta, very quickly, if you don't mind, within 30 seconds, can you tell your experience of the change in the enterprise workloads?
We are almost everything is on a cloud, whether it's a private hybrid cloud or private cloud. In fact, I was one of the very early movers on the trading platform. I'm completely from the broking market, the trading platform. So one of the early in the 2017 itself, we moved the trading platform on the private cloud actually. So as of now, we cannot move the trading platform, the institutional trading platform on the public cloud because nobody talks about the latency. But we moved to the entire trading platform on the cloud, and you can see a lot of case study done on my projects. The other point I will add what Prasenjit was mentioning actually, our research automation is a completely cloud, and actually we are delivering the entire analytics on our in-house developed on a cloud, entire things on the equity markets. What is the equity market movements happening, or the price movement, or the any incident happening on the particular listed companies or anything. So we are tracking those on the real time. What is happening on the exchanges, what is happening on the price movement or the volume movement, and entire thing goes immediately almost at the real time to the research analyst team, and they do the analysis and they send it to the global funds immediately. This entire thing activity finishes within few minutes actually. And remember, anything which is in the stock market which is 5-10 minutes old, still data actually.
Yeah.
The entire thing is we are completely on the entire research is on completely BI tools and entire thing on the cloud, public cloud, and a mix of a hybrid cloud. So that is we already are doing it. So most of the support systems is on the public cloud, which is on the subscription. A few things are on the subscription base also. So now we are talking on the enterprise cloud. Actually, the subscription based models is also getting them into it. So that's what I started. Now the cloud is the inevitable cloud. What inevitable? Now the hybrid cloud is inevitable. The multiple cloud is becoming the part of your life. So entire thing is on the cloud actually. So you talk anything. The only thing which is missing in our thing is the public cloud of the trading platform, because we are working on the HFTs, the high frequency trading deals and algos, which cannot be talked about the third digit of the second actually. So those are the only things which is hosted on our premises. Otherwise, the entire thing is there. So things have completely improved in the last 3 years.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I think wonderful inputs. It's just is it customer experience, and is it because of analytics, and it is because of the variety of businesses in a conglomerate, or due to innovations, or due to research, or speed, and what's the real time, especially securities, you cannot wait some time. All these are the different types of workloads basically gave an what you call a trigger point for the multi-cloud. What is hybrid cloud and multi-cloud? Prasenjit, in your view?
Well, the confusion between hybrid cloud and multi-cloud is compounded by the fact that they are often used interchangeably. People say that hybrid, multi. Okay. Now, no large enterprise, no matter how well prepared they are, can simply leap to the cloud in one full swoop. Okay. Even if the goal is to migrate to a public cloud, there is going to be a necessary transition period during which the enterprise will have some resources, systems, and workload capabilities that have been migrated to public cloud, while others remain in the enterprise data center or co-hosting centers. Now, this interoperability is a common example of a hybrid cloud. Okay, that workload you have on your premises, and you something a public cloud. Okay, now hybrid cloud combines private and the public cloud together the same purpose. Hybrid always includes private and public, unlike the multi-cloud model. Okay, where you take services from multiple clouds based on your requirement, and they work on their own silos. Okay, now a multi-cloud solution in an organization uses multiple different public cloud services, often from multiple service providers. Okay, and the platforms will be different. It may be platform as a service or software as a service from multiple cloud operators. Okay, an application running in a hybrid cloud framework could use load balancing and web application service from a public cloud, while the database and the storage, they can be live on their own premise or on a private cloud. That is how a hybrid cloud model works. Okay. However, an application on a multi-cloud environment that is not hybrid, on the other hand, may run all computer network activity on, suppose I say, on AWS and using database services on Azure. That also can work. Okay. So a clearly defined cloud strategy is an essential element for every successful IT department's functioning and project deployment. So
Sure.
while planning for a cloud adoption for any workload or while migrating to a new cloud, we must consider various pros and cons associated with the traditional approaches as well as the new practices. Okay, a hybrid cloud and the multi-cloud may have similar attributes, but at the operational level, there are several differences.
It's a wonderful explanation. I mean, there's a lot of confusion in the market, hybrid cloud, multi-cloud, and people also use it interchangeably. I think it's wonderful. So, Kapil, could you please quickly, just only, I need to know the difference. I mean, how you handle cloud bursts, or how do you handle the cloud sprawl? So, I think, can you please give some thoughts on that very quickly, please?
So I'll try to keep it short. So before we get into it, I'll just spend a minute on, what is a cloud burst basically means, expanding your on-premise work and moving some or all of that, activity to the public. Generally, this is done, you generally do it to mitigate against rapid workload growth, such as coping with demands, which is generally the use case that it's used for.
Right.
In a way, it's a very specialized form of hybrid cloud, right? The private portion of the cloud can be right-sized to accommodate an organization's typical capacity needs, but the connection to the public cloud allows us to burst the additional computing resources that you would need on demand. Right? So it kind of your on-demand strategy, but you have to be very selective in terms of what applications you need to use for cloud burst. So while cloud bursting, I believe is a great idea, in reality the process is quite difficult. Right, so many applications. Why? Because many applications simply aren't designed to be distributed across 2 or more compute environments because they're generally monolith in nature. Right, so I would say that managing a cloud burst to support your business, VSR requires a very well thought strategy in terms of identifying the applications that are a right fit. When I say right fit, I mean both architectural and also from a financial angle. And then going about refactoring the identified applications to make use of the cloud burst to effectively save cost and add application agility. So that is cloud burst. Now coming to cloud sprawl, it generally occurs when cloud instances, services, or providers are adopted without regulation across the entire organization. So it's a bigger problem for bigger organizations. The more clouds you have, it gets more complex. So it results in massive spending on the cloud that could be highly inefficient for the organization. So I believe that there are 3 main areas we look into it are basically 3 areas from an efficiency and an effectiveness standpoint. So one is enacting accountability measures. So this means that you involve the organizations holding all key people accountable, do their part in controlling the cloud spend and not just limiting it to your IT teams, right? So the business owner needs to take accountability as well, right? Second important area is improving the visibility to track consumption. So before your organizations can properly track cloud consumption, they must be able to clearly see where all the cloud programs exist, right? So problem is I don't see it, how do I fix the problem? So I think we need to give the stakeholders an opportunity to determine which metrics to require visibility and how those metrics will be collected. And once that is done, the organization can kind of manage the inventory and consumption in a perpetual manner in a much better way. And I think the third area here is use of cloud portfolio management solution. So again, managing cloud sprawl manually is a sizable challenge for IT. So you need to have a cloud portfolio management solution in place to get a visibility into, or a centralized view into all your cloud assets.
Sure.
Yeah, so those are the 3 areas for managing the cloud sprawl effectively.
I think it's an excellent. So what is important, as you said, is a strategy plan and the life cycle management. Most importantly, the monitoring mechanism. How to, where this bus is required, what is happening, or sprawl happening, how effectively you can manage them. So then my next question to Dr. Mehta is, Dr. Mehta, we talk about so many things now. I think since the beginning, like multi-clouds and then hybrid clouds and then the enterprise workloads. It requires planning, strategy and all. But this is a humongous task. As I said, if there are 17 cloud providers or at least 10 cloud providers for a company to support different workloads without having proper automation in the whole life cycle, without having proper monitoring and tracking mechanism, very difficult to manage. So do you see any platforms in the market available, automated platforms? So what are the top 4 features these platforms must have? There might be so many platforms available from different vendors, but in our view, in general, if you want to select a best platform for the multi-cloud or hybrid cloud lifecycle management for services provisioning, services tracking, monitoring, controlling, etc., what are the top 4 features? Can you please quickly give the top 4 these platforms must have?
You're right. Now almost all partner or all OEMs are now providing a multi-cloud platform. So you name anybody, they have each one comes with its own tools, but that new tools bring some complexity in the system also. So that is where the problems or the entire things comes up. So if I need to summarize that what are the few things which is a must or something in this thing, rather what is which should be there part of your data center or part of your cloud thing. If the most important things it will be these things are that you should have a complete it's a service oriented thing, whether you can do a complete provisioning also, you can do a complete end-to-end monitoring as a CIO or as a CISO. You need to have complete monitoring. You need to have a complete control on the performance. So these are the things you need to when you're finalizing any partner, what is the performance it is going, what is the analytics you are getting, which cloud is being used. This thing. The most important part is it has to have somewhere integration with the security or your infosec, because if anything you miss out the infosec, then you are in a big problem. You know what is happening on the any slippage on the infosec, the hackers and all those things. And then the important thing, it support your governance and your corporate policies. Governance is typically whether it's your privacy data, or whether it's your GDPR or Indian privacy or the other global privacy or data provision. So these things you need to have those parameters running in your system. Those parameters should be support. Otherwise, whenever you go for a multi-cloud environment, it brings a new management system, new management solution, and it brings you more problems. So you should aware of these problems. Most important part, it should control your cost actually. If the whole idea of multi-platform, if it burns your pocket, then ultimately the CFO is going to have his word. So that is where you need to be very clear on those parts. Of the vendors, in respect of the OEM partners, these are the common things you should be very much aware of going for multi-cloud.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Mehta. Wonderful insight. I mean, like we do for our businesses, we tell you need to have real-time insight, you need to have analytics, and our system should help you to take right decision at right time. All those things should be, most importantly, you said the governance, the data privacy and regulatory compliance, because multi-clouds are there. We might be operating in different countries. So all these things needs to be factored while selecting a platform from the vendors, or we may probably build our own based on the situation, what is required. Thank you so much. So now my last question to all of you is, could you please give me 1 or 2 metrics in our view? Just 1 or 2, straight 1 or 2 metrics. How we measure the success of a multi-cloud environment? Any 1 or 2 metrics, what do we need to measure? Anybody can tell. So 1 or 2 metrics you think is success of a multi-cloud?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. 2 or 3 metrics which comes in my mind immediately is performance monitoring should be done for the virtual machines which are working. Okay, the performance monitoring should be done for the underlying hardware, it may be the server or the storage on which your work is working, and also the application performance. These are the 3 things which we should monitor and have a pure metrics or figures on which we can actually see that how my cloud performance is. Yep.
Sure. Excellent. Thanks so much. So, Jayanta, so any thoughts on 2 metrics in our view, 1 or 2 metrics, what we could measure the effectiveness and efficiency of multi-cloud environment?
In any multi-cloud environment, I may have a situation to move my applications from here to the other. So the flexibility and agility of the movement of applications across cloud would be the one good comfort for future IT operations teams. The other would be definitely the standard statutory compliances across, because I cannot have my audits running on different standards on different cloud. My internal audit should be based on both my statutory and security audits standard parameters. So then those standard parameters should be equally workable, acceptable across. These two, I think, in my opinion, would be on top of what Prasanjit says. This should be my consideration.
Perfect. Good, good. I think that's great, actually. Yeah. So, Dr. Mehta, one or two metrics in your view, how we measure the multiple cloud.
Couple of points which I want to share my views is that one what Jayanta was just touched upon, that is the migration. If you the migration comes with a lock-in period. So whenever we're selecting any cloud library, you should not go into a lock-in period. That is so that you are free to migrate from one operator, one partner to other partner. So that is one thing is very critical. The data security and compliance has to be perfect, because typically we are in the financial services, so we are bound with the SEBI, RBI, the exchanges, many financial regulators, the data privacy, GDPR. So this compliance and data security is there. Your migration has to be very critical. You should not be having a lock-in on all those periods, the lock-in part of anything. So that is one thing is there. And from the operation point of view, from our internal team point of view, it should be having what percentage raised couple of points is that the operation should be very small. It should not become a overhead for my team members. It becomes an overhead for them. It should ease their work actually, rather than it becoming overhead. So these are the few giveaways for a multi-cloud platform. Very critical for us.
Thank you, Dr. Mehta. Yeah. So Kapil, so two metrics very quickly, please.
I'll probably share one, because I think most of my colleagues have shared them. But I think if I look at it, from the other side, other than the tech metrics that we have in place, I think one important area is ensuring governance and compliance. So for most of the companies, multiple compliance requirements like HIPAA, SOX, they need to be met regardless of where the data resides, right? And making this whole data governance very critical. So I think from that point of view, it's important to see that your multi-cloud strategy is able to kind of meet these compliances and governance requirements. That kind of shows the maturity of your multi-cloud strategy and you as an organization.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much. I think the performance, operational excellence, compliance, ease of migration, standards, I think ease of governance. I think all this probably gives a lot of confidence to CFOs that the multi-cloud is working fine or not. Thank you so much for sharing. I think this is very limited time. This is a big subject. I'm sure we can get into so many dimensions of multi-cloud with vast experience what you have. So, but I'm sorry, I have to manage the time. So, with that note, I'll summarize. I think we discussed what are the changes and the trigger points coming at the business side. Like we said today, the customer experience management, the business analytics, which requires a lot of computing power, storage, and network bandwidth. So, what sort of different enterprise workloads emerged in the last 4 or 5 years, putting a lot of pressure on the infrastructure requirements, and also so many different type of applications requirements which may not run on one cloud effectively, so demanding for a multi-clouds environment and all. So I think we really justified very well why the multi-cloud environment is required. We also talk about hybrid cloud and multi-cloud difference. I think that's another interesting thing. Then we talk about cloud sprawl and cloud burst. Maybe the readers can also really do some research on that, and without managing those two in the metrics, I think we also need to have the intensity of these two. I think that needs to be managed very well. And the platform's selection process, what are all the features to be considered, and finally, without quantification and metrics of the multi-cloud, we can't really see the effectiveness and efficiency. So thank you so much. This is a wonderful discussion. And I think we'll conclude this session with these remarks. Thank you so much.